So again, thanks everyone for being here tonight. Thanks to Ryan's family and friends for coming to this momentous occasion. Tonight we're here to swear in Officer McShane as before as part of the ceremony to be held at this meeting. Even though these ceremonies are very short, it recognizes the officer's commitment to the town and the residents of Manchester by the Sea. So Sergeant McShane joined the police department in 2004 and has served the town in many different roles. So just about 20 years Ryan's been here. He was an auxiliary police officer, call firefighter, a full-time dispatcher, a reserve police officer, promoted to full-time police officer, and he served as a role as a detective for a short period of time. Sergeant McShane is also our accreditation manager. He spends a lot of time down in Lieutenant McCoy's office going over policies and procedures and making sure we're up to date on everything that we have to do to maintain our accreditation. He's a 2004 graduate of Manchester Essex Regional High School. Did his high school score project with us. Currently holds a Bachelor's of Arts degree in criminal justice and is working on completing his master's, which will be done very shortly. So at this time, Diane, town clerk, come up, and Ryan, step forward, and you can take the oath of office for sergeant.
Sorry. Hi. Do you solemnly swear that you will uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States of America, the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and the bylaws of the town of Manchester by the Sea, and that you will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all the duties incumbent upon you as a sergeant of the Manchester Police Department to the best of your ability?
I do.
Congratulations, Sergeant.
Thank you for. Congratulations and thank you.
And finally, to conclude the short little ceremony, I asked Ryan's wife Joanna and his son Jackson to come up and do the ceremony of badge fitting, and I think Lieutenant McCoy is going to take a photo.
He's got the badge.
He's wearing the badge.
He's wearing it.
He's not about to give it up.
Someone is paying attention.
You can take it back afterwards.
Yeah.
Blood.
What's the importance?
Stab him right in.
Yeah.
So scary.
There you go. Again, thank you for allowing us to do this. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Our pleasure.
Congratulations.
The old grandmother.
Yes.
The old grandmother. Thank you.
Calm down at the same time. Mom must be late. I'll sit there.
Are you really?
Okay.
Oh, that was quick.
As often happens, I skip the first parts of the meeting, which is to ask for public comments on non-agenda items. I see no hands and
No hands on that.
Is it in fact our intention to start a public comment, a serious public comment at our next meeting?
Yes, you talked about that.
We talked
The
about that
workshop.
at the workshop.
So your next meeting on the 15th,
Yes.
you said start have a half hour open forum at 6:30 with the meeting starting at 7.
And I think the topic, discussion is open, but we will be looking in particular for comments on the MBTA zoning efforts and whatever people have to say. So, that's a change, and that was my chairman's report. Now, Brian,
Well, actually, on the action item?
Yes.
do we have a
oh,
moment?
sure,
I believe we had discussed getting a debrief for the board on the emergency preparedness tabletop. And unless I'm missing it, I don't see it on the action items. So if we could add that,
Yeah, would you like that to be available for the next meeting?
I mean, we're meeting with the public safety officials at the next meeting, so I think it would be an ideal time since they're gonna be here anyway. Specifically, I'd be looking for what's working well, the deficiencies, and any actions that either are in process or we think we need to take. Thank you.
yes,
Thank you, Deb. I move that the select board open the water and sewer rate public hearings.
Second.
Jess,
Yes.
Brad,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Anne says yes,
John says yes.
Chuck,
How we doing?
I,
Happy to go over. I've sent a series of emails. I hope you didn't spam me or you didn't consider it spam from me. Like we started to discuss at the last meeting, some fairly substantial capital improvements that we need to make, and tried to offer a couple different options for how we might go about paying for that based on utility rates rather than on tax rate. And I'm not sure if you want the specific details, but I think I landed kind of in a kind of middle scenario where we did need to institute call it a capital fee by meter size. I started on the low end on that one, but we also need to, do something with the volumetric rate. At the last meeting, I heard that we could consolidate some tiers because there wasn't a lot of differentiation between a few of them. So I think I explained, how I would approach that and seemed to make some good sense. One on the, consolidate the bottom 2 tiers and consolidate the top 2 tiers to end up from 6 tiers in the current system to 4. We kept the tiered structure, so the more water you use, the more expensive it gets per gallon or per 100 cubic feet. Today, sorry I didn't get to it earlier, but I gave you some kind of scenarios where if you're a family of 2, what you might expect for an increase in your bill, and all the way up to a family of 7, as well as if you're on the higher end or of the irrigation scale where you'd end up. We also had to look at the sewer rate because, as you know, we are planning our capital improvements for the wastewater treatment plant. So I think the math checks out. It's just a matter of what we think we need to institute and when over the next few years. I tried to take an approach where we're kind of even over the next few years, so there's not a sudden increase, 3 or 4 years from now when we're, all the bills are final and we need to pay for it, for real. But happy to take any comments or answer any other questions if there's thought. I assume that's where you wanted me to start. Was there somewhere else to start?
I was hoping you had a slide or two because
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm not sure which of the pieces of paper I'm talking about.
Right.
I don't know if Greg wants to bring up my email. That would be probably.
I
I
guess,
have a question.
yeah,
I think there were some aspects of the information, and I apologize, there was some late breaking information, I have not reviewed it. I think there were some aspects of what you're recommending that have been reviewed by FinCom and some have not. On the capital charge, is that one of the ones that has not yet been reviewed by FinCom?
So FinCom has talked in general about having a capital fee,
Okay,
and after going back and forth, they did conclude that they would support a capital fee,
Okay.
but they haven't talked numbers.
Okay, so they in general are fine with the concept, but not necessarily how we go about implementing that concept.
Again, they didn't talk specific numbers.
But did they talk about it being based on usage or meter size, or did they come to some agreement that, because they're tasked to advise us and.
They did agree that basing it on meter size would be
Okay.
appropriate.
Okay.
Um,
That's helpful.
they did, like I said, they did go a little bit of back and forth.
Yeah, I presented the same fee structure to them that I presented to you guys back in January.
Okay.
So, which was based on meter size and kind of winding up generally around $1 million, whether it's, $1 million all at once or ramp up to it. They didn't really get into those specifics. It's
Okay.
just the numbers in general.
What percentage of our meters are above 5/8?
A half are 5/8, a quarter are three quarters, and the rest are in
On
lower
edge.
proportions, yes. As,
So, sorry.
as Chuck has explained, many of the people who have the large meters don't need them, aren't using enough water. And they are installed because it's convenient to install a meter that's the same size as the incoming pipe. So there will be lots of opportunities for people to lower their capital fee by changing out meters.
So when the new meters come, they can go to a smaller meter that.
And who's, and the advice will come from DPW as far as downsizing the meters?
So our approach would first be to just change size for size. And then if there were, because this would be happening sometime after we institute this fee likely, if they wanted to ask for a different size, we could accommodate.
So I guess the question would be what might prompt them to do that if they are unfamiliar with why they're getting charged, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot that goes into your meter size in terms of, like Ann said, I think most of the non 5/8 3/4 meters in town probably don't need to be that big. I think it was an instance where most water services, when they come into the house, are an inch, and so they would try and match that inch. Sometimes they have a reason where they are irrigating a lot and they know that and they want the bigger meter, and it would there are size thresholds for the volume of water directly
That's what I was
corresponds
saying,
to the size of meter. So if you were to arbitrarily just downsize for the sake of downsizing but not reduce your consumption correspondingly, there would be an issue there. So we would have to review the last 8 years, or not 8 years, 8 quarters worth of bills or something like that to be able to make an informed decision.
So the request would come in, you would review and then make your decision based on 2 years' worth of usage.
Yeah, we could commit to that. There might have to be some sort of offsetting, so to do that, you would need to pay a plumber to downsize the fittings and stuff coming into the house and coming into the meter. So we, I would say, as I stand here right now, if we have it in the budget, I'm happy to do it. If we don't, then I would have to put that back on the homeowner.
Yeah, no, that's their choice, yeah.
But there are about 300 or 400 meters that are in this category. And the
Potentially.
majority are probably not there, and this is going to be proactive or reactive for our call.
Yeah, so the way a meter changeout goes is they would, we will have a contractor that's on board to strictly just change out meters, basically one for one. And so they would be reaching out to homeowners to schedule, or they would have websites or call centers where a resident would get a bill that said, hey, we're on Walker Road today, or this month or whatever, and we're looking to schedule appointments. So that would be kind of the first opportunity for them when they see that door hanger or mailing or how social media, like there's all those different things are on the table. We'll probably utilize all of them at some point.
All right,
And that's when they would get the chance.
How are you going to manage, I mean, given, right now, how many meters there are of each size. You're going to order meters. If you're allowing people to change in progress,
Yep.
how are you gonna deal with, okay, I've suddenly got 100 leftover 2-inch meters and I'm completely out of 5/8?
Yeah, so we don't get the 2,600 meters on day one. Like it's a kind of a rolling inventory. And so, at some point, there will be, horse trading of, okay, we actually only installed, 300 1-inch meters instead of 600, so therefore, they would offer, the break-in price. So that's part of the RFP and the installation contract prices. All meters cost a different amount, so the larger the meter, the more it costs. So that's gonna be kind of our base budget. And then as, we do or don't install that many, that's what we would actually pay for. So that's the opportunity.
So, I think we have to be proactive in this. If you just go up and say you got a 1-inch meter and we're just gonna change, and then they find retrospectively that they could have gone to a smaller meter, there's gonna be some people that are gonna come back and not be happy about that. It would seem to me, I don't know what the math is, because they gotta get in a plumber, but maybe it works out. Instead of paying $400 a quarter or whatever it is, I can pay a lot less, and it doesn't cost that much for a plumber to be there. It seems to me you're gonna have to kind of rank all of the users in terms of size and then volume and make a decision about.
Right, it would seem that,
Those
you
folks.
already know out of the homeowners who is eligible
Yeah.
to have their meter size reduced, because if it's based on usage, you know what their usage is. So whatever that short list is,
You have a cutoff.
you may consider reaching out to them, although, if you were gonna be charging fewer people for the larger cost, then that means everybody else's cost is going to go up as well. So I think, I would just suggest thinking that through a little
The
bit.
whole thing seems a little, not to say it, but fluid.
Yes, no pun intended.
It's fluid. It's not necessarily changing water consumption, because those people have the habits they have. And the
Well,
costs that are associated with that are associated with a meter, which all of a sudden you're not putting on a bigger meter. It costs us less, and it's gonna cost the consumer less.
It would be
So
helpful, I
that
think,
makes
to
sense.
know how many people are eligible for a meter size reduction
yeah.
based on their usage and the size of their pipe. If it's a small number, we don't have to spend a whole lot of time talking about it, but if it's a significant number, that could change the way you want to set the fees.
So I mean, there's 2,000 5/8 and 3/4. So,
Mhm.
that's a lot of backlog of work before we get to the point where we're worried about,
Okay,
each
but you're going to do it
individual
by neighborhood and not by pipe
Yeah,
size.
inevitably there's, you don't get into every house, people work, people are away, it's gonna be a situation where, we have to accommodate, all of these things.
So when I first looked at your idea of having a capital charge, I thought didn't read it carefully, I thought you were talking about a capital charge to pay for the new meters. And that makes sense to me, because only people who have meters are going to have meter upgrades. But that could be taken care of with $500,000 over 3 years, rather than $3 million over 3 years. And I'm worried about the huge single step. I think it's going to be harder to get, I think we are going to have more unhappy people with a huge increase, particularly one that's not for anything we currently have in our fixed plans. You're building up a bank account to spend starting in probably 27, maybe not even that.
Well, by 27, those bonds we'll have to start paying those bonds in 27.
Which ones?
The bonds we've already
They cover all
approved.
The ones we, but the PFAS, which is what I'm not worried about the sewer.
I understand, but we approved 4 million in water bonds.
Yes,
And so paying off those water bonds will start in a couple of years.
okay.
So
But
you could ramp up the capital fee over the next, couple of years to get to that number. But I think,
we're doubling, and more than doubling, a lot of water bills.
well, that's why I'm saying ramp up to it over a 2-year period.
Yeah. But we have in the past paid off water bonds from taxation,
General fund, yeah.
the general fund. And the general fund is reviewed fairly closely by the finance committee. I'm worried that we're building a slush fund, and
Yeah, I'm confident it won't be a slush fund, it'll be spent. And you've already identified spending for it. The question of whether or not to use taxation versus user fees, that's a debate you can have for sure.
And user fees are usually based on usage and not the arbitrariness of the meter size. Most people aren't gonna recognize that they have a problem until they see their bill and it's got a $600 a quarter or $400 a quarter extra fee on it. And then they're not going to be happy.
Right, so this is an attempt to give some relief to the general fund because of all
But
the competing.
the difference between the general fund and the
It's out of
water,
the same pocket, I understand
it's
Same.
probably a dozen people.
that. The same residents are paying taxes that are paying water
Well,
bills.
there are a dozen people who are not paying water, but I'm,
So is this something where we might ask FinCom to get a little more specific on their advice to us before we make a
perhaps
firm decision?
that would certainly make me happy.
Yeah. I think you presented some really good information. Like I said, I just haven't reviewed all of what came in this afternoon. So I personally don't feel comfortable making a firm call on the rates. I'm very pleased to see the rates being reduced from 6 to 4. I think that's fantastic on the water side. But I do think we ought to allow FinCom to.
Can we separate
Yeah.
the capital charge
Yes, yes.
from the rates?
Yes,
I think the rates are clearly presented,
Yeah.
and the one thing I had hoped to get, and I didn't communicate with it, is to take some specific people's bills
Right.
from 2 years ago, so you have the full year, and project what they would be with the new rates, so that we
Yeah.
can see for someone who's not using a lot of water, for someone who's using a moderate amount of water, for someone, but not just what the ranges are, because, you can figure that out for the ranges that you.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I sent you this
No.
out.
Yeah,
So,
That's not what you said. Well, if you,
he sent us theoretical scenarios, but I'll bet if
I
you
mean, I
go
didn't
through
put
the
anybody's name on it,
database,
but-
you will find
Those are
somebody
real
who's.
residents, but you just omitted the names.
okay, you said,
Okay. There was something that came late this afternoon, and
Yeah.
like I said, I have not.
It was a,
oh yeah,
it
family.
was a family of 2, a family of 5, and a family of 7.
Okay, the family of 2 isn't, what I have is.
That was just me
family
pasting the rates there for
Yeah,
reference, but down
right.
below is where I said $65
Okay.
per capita per day.
of five. Okay,
and so he assumed, 65 gallons per person per day
okay.
for those two people and
Okay.
applied,
Do you have-
Today's
Do you have
rates.
that page?
yes.
Could you put it up so that,
You're on the family of 2 one?
While he's putting that up, Chuck, you've got suggested capital charges of $50, $200, and $400. $50 more or less paid over, I don't know, a couple of years or so, would cover, in effect, if you wanted to say this covers a meter, that'd cover a meter. The bigger meters don't cost like, $400 a quarter or something like that. In other words, those monies are certainly being more broadly collected for
I mean,
all the water initiatives.
It's still pretty close.
But those meters cost 5 times
So
or,
a 2-inch meter is over $1,000.
okay, and what's the regular meter?
289.
Yeah, like.
All right, it's like 4, all right.
So
I'm
it's, I mean, it's
saying
not perfect.
exactly,
by
but
any
it's certainly
means,
a lot
but I
higher.
Gave it a shot.
What are we trying to amortize these things over? What period of time?
So I was just doing kind of a base capital fee. So like, I know this is new to Manchester, but this is not new to the water industry by any means. It certainly is you can call it a lot of different things. Like, so there's capital fee, there's, in Wenham, it's just a meter size fee. In Marshfield, it's a base rate. So like, so if you use, in our tiered system, if you use just within that tier, you only get billed for what you use. But there's some that just start that first tier, it's a flat fee. So, it would be, in our case, it would be around $60 a quarter, would be the base fee. So if you're, like John's example, if somebody's not using any water, they might get a $20 bill. Like, that just doesn't happen in other towns. That's how they do it. But that's not, to say that's right or wrong, there's many ways to do it. And so what I was trying to do, Brian, to answer your question, is just, we have these costs, they're definitely coming. if, to the extent you want the users to pay for it, we have to figure out a way to do it, and this is a way.
No, I get that part, I'm just saying is that, you're trying to retire this debt over 2 years, 3 years?
So in my mind,
I'm talking about the capital.
I was instituting it for, until basically the PFAS is paid for, which is gonna probably be a 20-year bond, so it's a 20-year payment. And I think what John and Ann are getting at is, if we're just using the capital fee or a meter fee to pay for meters, it'll only take a year or two at the rates I propose.
And then the money will just continue because, hey, we've got the
Well, we'll
PFAS
be
to deal with,
rolling
and it'll
into
just kind of
PFAS payments.
blend into that.
Well, I
And
mean,
then,
we
like-
would still be evaluating the fee every year.
Yes.
Could
Yeah,
reduce
so
it
all
if
of
we
this is,
didn't need it.
subject to the annual review that we already do. I'm just trying to start at a spot where I think 3 or 4 years from now, we're not quadrupling this fee,
Right.
we're not cutting it in half likely, but, it's somewhere kind of in the middle to make it a steady
So
transition.
you're debt by 1,000 cuts versus massive lopping off
I'm
ahead.
just
So
trying to pay for the
If I'm
jobs in
reading
front of
this correctly, the family of two, under the current proposal, their water bill would go up by a
20%.
little less than $30. Their sewer would go up around $70, but then the meter assessment would be $200
Right.
annually.
Yep.
So,
So the volumetric rates are not,
Right.
significant, I would say, but, they are going.
No, and I,
is what's
And then
significant.
the base rate,
Right.
or the capital fee, or any of these things, is you gotta start somewhere.
I looked at this, I did an analysis of this afternoon, I had a little time. And for this scenario, that person's bill is gonna go up 20%. And most of that 20% is that $200 capital fee. You back that out, the rest is the 7% that you said everything's gotta go up by 7% for reasons. We can talk about that, but that's the number you would assign. For the second scenario, it went up 40%, this family of 5, and that's the only irrigator. And I have to say,
Examples.
this example, this is one of the top 10 consumers. This is over 1 million gallons a year this person uses, and 90% of that is water in their lawn. This is a very big lawn.
An acre.
And their number, and they also have large meter, and their number goes up 40%. And then the third group was a family of 7. They weren't irrigating anything. And, but they were using about 160,000 gallons a year, and it went up about 11%. So the lower users are going to see greater increases because that capital cost that you're suggesting is a big percentage of what the increase is. And most of the people in town here are down in that area. So they will see those numbers in and around 15 to 20%, so all due to that fee. And when I say most, I mean 70%.
Right, so that's where you could ramp that up. You don't have to hit the 200 a year. You could go in the first year 100 and then in the second year another 100. So you could,
Yeah,
if you wanted to step it up gradually.
The other, I understand that you're concerned that there are other competing needs for capital in town, and that you want to do this, to put this money outside of that competition.
Well, not only that, but these are have to be. All the other stuff is subject to town meeting and all that stuff, and like you said, it's gonna be a debate and it's gonna be a town decision. These are not really town decisions, and I feel like it needs to be taken out of that. But that's up to you
I'm
guys
sorry,
how you pay
I
for
think
it.
our budget is a town decision.
Not when it comes to the rates for paying for the, like, we don't have the option of doing PFAS. Any other, buying a DPW truck, buying all, those are decisions, typically they're, not controversial, but they're, they are choices.
Do we know how much,
This PFAS is not a choice.
do we know how much the PFAS is going to cost?
I could say at a minimum, it's gonna cost 10 million, actually probably more than 12 million, or 10 million, and at a maximum 27 million is the numbers I have today.
So that's with no help from the state.
big range. Very good.
But even a $10 million bond is
So-
roughly $1 million a year.
So
Yeah.
in order to kind of stay on topic to your point, Ann, we want to separate the discussion around the rates versus the capital. And I guess my question is, are we comfortable with the 4-tiered rates that Chuck has presented, or do we want FinCom to take a look at that as well?
if you're asking me, I'm happy with the 14 rates. It's my
Taking
problem
a
is-
poll, yeah, I mean,
Jeff?
Yeah, I'm okay with that, but like, I think you're right with the capital end of it, we need to look into that more.
I agree, I think, we're asking, when you throw in the capital, we're asking the taxpayer to take a big bite, and, it's a, economy sucks right now, and
Right.
we don't want a culture shock here.
No, I'm good with the 4 tiers. My reaction after looking at this, and I think we do have to have some sort of a capital piece in there, but because it's such a large percentage for such a large percentage of the population here, that maybe the rates don't increase quite as much at the lower end, and maybe they go up a little bit more on the higher end. I don't know
Are
to
you
try
talking
and
about
balance
rates?
it. Just
Or are you
on the
talking
4
about
tiers.
cap? The 4 tiers.
The 4 tiers. And so, yeah, in general, I mean, I can live with what you've got, Chuck. If I were making a recommendation, I might go down a few percentage points on the lower numbers and a few percentage points higher on the bigger numbers, but I'm okay.
Seems like in this situation, we're not going down. on
No,
that low.
maybe not.
so, I guess my suggestion would be that we take a vote on the water rates.
Right.
And give FinCom an opportunity to advise us on the capital.
Mhm.
I hear that as the consensus right now.
Do I make a motion?
So I would move to accept the, actually,
This is,
we have to-
Let's see, wait a minute.
we wanna, we have a public hearing here, so I didn't know if you wanted to,
well, okay, let's just establish for sure which of the sets of rates we want to.
okay.
And I think we're talking about the rates that start with $7.21,
Yes.
8.14,
Yep.
10.80, 14.18.
That is what I was referring to.
Okay,
So it's that second tier of numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's on the screen.
so I guess we, at this point, close the, or continue.
Continue.
Well, if you want to bifurcate,
Yes.
you can approve the volumetric rates,
Mhm.
tiers this evening.
Okay.
But you should first see if there's any public comment.
Okay, then, you're right, it's a public hearing after all.
So,
I opened it, so I know.
Okay, is there public comment in the room? Yes, Ms. O'Hara.
Lorena Iavani, 28 Pine Street. Just a reminder, I know you all know this, and good questions by Kathy over there. A lot of our population, 2 people, are seniors. And I just want to throw that out. And we know what the percentage is, I know John does, so thank you.
Is there any discussion from,
I'm not seeing any hands up.
Is there,
We got one in the room here.
yes, oh, sorry, yes.
I don't know, was there already people giving input on the water rates, or is this the first of it?
This is, we have talked about this in the past, but
Okay, well, I'm Dick Gutals, Desmond Avenue. I'm not happy about the 4-tiered plan that you guys seem to be happy about. In particular, every time it's discussed in the paper or publicly, there's this mention about the top tier, parenthesis, these are mostly people who are doing large-scale irrigating and so forth. Well, my rate often goes up into the higher thing. I have a very small house. We have 5 adults, lots of showers, lots of washing, next to no watering outside at all. And so I think, it's a complete blind spot or a fallacy to be talking about this top rate as somehow it just affects the states who are doing large-scale watering. And I have a suggestion about that. Outlaw it, period. If irrigation is causing a problem, then it shouldn't happen. We have times when we have a water shortage, everybody has to, cut back and do whatever, right? And no watering, well, then maybe if that's the problem, then that's the way to address it. But I am opposed to these higher rates. They affect me, and I don't, I replace leaks, I do whatever I can, but somehow I creep up into the third category or what have you. And it irks me no end. So,
Thank you. We hear you.
spread it out, if that's the case.
Formulating something here, I don't know how to articulate it, so we need some
Okay.
thought. Maybe next month.
No, it's by reducing,
Want me to
go ahead.
So, I hear what you're saying. The volumetric rate, actually, the higher end, the lawn water and irrigating, actually does offset somewhat the lower tier. So the lower tier is not the true cost of water if you look at our operating expenses and our salaries divided by the gallons produced. So it's kind of a little bit of a conundrum, the catch-22, that even though some folks are just using it for indoor use or have other extenuating circumstances, that they might not see their bill go down, and that's just a function of the fact that we have basically fixed costs when it comes to our energy, our chemicals, and the cost to produce the water, and then we have a finite amount to sell. And as we feel the pressures, Brian was talking about the inflation and all of these things, they're kind of going in the opposite direction. So it's not as if we can just pass the costs on to some invisible person or invisible estate. That's exactly
Totally,
what happens.
we're all here.
Sure.
My response is to that, if I may, is that I disagree, I resent, using the water rates as a theoretical tool to manipulate me, supposedly, to somehow find a way to solve the problem. If all these costs exist, and, these different tiers have come about, a group of people who thought this was, a wonderful idea to try to, teach people a lesson. But I think it's better to just, if the costs are high, the costs should be borne by everybody, period.
I have a question.
Yes.
Chuck just mentioned something really interesting. What is your cost per 100 cubic foot?
Unfortunately, I don't have that number, but I can tell you I have done a lot of theoretical thinking on all of these things. And so when we were looking at a million for our kind of capital charge, I got there by saying $50 per meter, or some variation of that over the size. If we wanted to get to $1 million of revenue, we need about a penny a gallon. So our current expenses are around $1.5 million a year without counting any of the capital charge. So that's just to keep the power on at the plant, to have the water pump into the tank, out of the well, and into your homes. So that's roughly, I think we did the math. It's based on all of the consumption that we typically see. It's about a little less than a penny a gallon. For,
And per 100 cubic feet? I'm sorry.
So I'd have to do that.
That's
That's a conversion that I don't have off the top of my head, but
I'm just saying it would
you
be.
can say a penny a gallon is roughly our $1.5 million expenses, and then anything over that, if we tacked on, like we're saying here, you don't want to do the meter fee, that's fine.
There are
We can do-
approximately 8 gallons in a cubic foot.
Okay.
Yeah, so that would be 8 pennies times 100, so $8.
$8, okay. The reason I asked the question was because when I heard you answer this gentleman's question, it gave me the impression that the higher tiers were subsidizing some of the basic cost of the system. And it looks as though if it's roughly $8 per 100 cubic foot, that's what our cost is, then it's that lower tier, we're not covering our costs with the $7.21.
No, that's an all-in.
Is that
So,
correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
Basically from year to year, because sometimes it rains and people turn off their irrigation, sometimes people get a smarter irrigation or they turn off a leak. All of these things come into play every year. So there's no, silver bullet that answers all of these questions. Everybody has a legitimate point of view based on where they sit and how they
I
use
was
the
just
water.
trying to understand your
And so-
statement, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
not
and so
challenging.
to answer it bluntly, yes, the top tiers in a typical year subsidize the lower tiers, and we count on all of it to make our $1.5 million, roughly annual revenue.
So approximately the first two tiers, the 721 and the 814, are paying less than the cost of producing their water. If water is
Oh, yeah.
7.481 cents.
Keep in mind, I mean, we're at, roughly 100 million gallons a
I don't
year,
do math
so
in my
like,
head.
over the course of the year, there's a lot that goes into it. But yeah, generally, yeah.
Greg, we're coming up with a process that we could go by to say that we approve the rates and we want to continue to discuss the capital.
So, two sets of rates, volumetric rates, water and sewer.
Mhm.
So you could have the same discussion now on the sewer rate
Mhm.
and ask for any public comment. And
Okay,
if you were comfortable with those, those recommendations for both water and sewer, you could then close a portion of the public hearing dealing with that, but continue
the
the
portion.
public hearing in relationship to capital fee.
Okay. So I think we're,
Who's making
I'm hearing a consensus on the rates, the volumetric rates for water. So now we should start discussing the volumetric rates for sewer.
So we wanna close,
We don't need to close
No.
it yet.
We still gotta talk to sewer, right?
We have to
Water
talk
and
sewer,
sewer.
water and sewer volumetric rates. Then we'll close the hearing for both of
entirely,
those.
yeah, that's fine.
So I think you want to move on to the sewer rate now, which is proposed as a 7% increase.
Mhm.
And over a 3-year period, that would generate sufficient funds to continue sewer paying 75% of the new bond, which is your
Which is
historical practice.
And then the
So-
remaining 25% would be out of taxation?
Yes,
Correct.
and the logic behind that is that everybody gets some benefit from having sewer and sewage,
No doubt.
not running in the streets.
So I have a question. Yeah, so Chuck, you've got 7%, your suggested approach is, right, just do 7% for the next 3 years. I'm not sure what happens after that. Is that 7% based upon simply increased costs, or are you trying to build up some capital reserves associated with that to pay down debt?
No, that will, when the bond comes due, the payment will be making that. And then there are additional projects that need to be done that could be done in that time.
So these rates generally go up a couple of percent a year. They always have, okay. So that 2% is buried in that 7. So the other 5 is building up a capital reserve, so to speak, to pay down.
Well, I mean, it's not-
Anticipated.
Anticipated, okay. What happens after 3 years? Are you saying, okay, I've done enough 7% and I'll go back to whatever the,
Yeah, well,
Incremental
we'll have to
cost might
evaluate at
be.
the time. I don't anticipate it being 7% again, but I don't
I
anticipate.
mean, 777 through fiscal year 27, fiscal year 28, are you gonna go for another 7 and say, all right, now we'll go back to 2.5 or 3?
I don't anticipate that right now.
Okay,
But I wouldn't rule it out based on our system, how things seem to happen. At least expect them.
well, money's fungible, it's going in lots of different directions here with regard to the bonds.
So the answer right now is that we don't anticipate additional needs for capital that would require more bonding. But as Chuck says, you never know what surprise is lurking and waiting for us. So,
So, baked into that number is about the 200,000 in capital that we've been doing. Some of that goes towards pipes, some of that goes to one-off projects in the plant. obviously, we're doing a much bigger project now, so I wouldn't use that money for one-offs at the plant, but we do have a significant backlog of pipe work that will need to get done. That's kind of yet to be budgeted, and so this will allow us to, divert that $200K a year roughly into those projects, and I don't anticipate that going on forever, but
So I have a question, we have the opportunity to revisit these rates each quarter? Is that correct, or is it twice a year?
No, it's really once a year,
Once a year?
yes.
Because I'm definitely a little uncomfortable with this building of a fund without a clear
so that,
utilization.
we are
So
not
I'm
building
just-
a fund on the
okay.
sewer side, or the water side for that matter, based on the volumetric rates. The capital fee, call that what you want, but the volumetric rates are really paying for the volumetric work that needs to be done on an annual basis, and there's no necessarily building up. It's just these projects are very dynamic, and this is funding that needs to go into the enterprise fund so that we can authorize it at the following town meeting. So this is not a situation where we're, we know exactly what the bill is gonna be. We just know that there are bills coming, and just because I haven't said it's a $200,000 pipeline project on Tappan Street doesn't mean that doesn't exist.
Right, but the sub,
And I would say, if you look at a trend of our enterprise fund going, because of all the volatility that we've seen in the market, we are drawing that down. And if you look at the revenue numbers that I did provide versus expenses, expenses are outpacing revenue. And so this is a correction. So I just want to make sure that's very clear. I'm not trying to run up a bank account.
So, but the sewer, I guess, for the ratepayers, it's about, what, 2.7, was it 2.58 million? That's the sewer, that's for the extra expenses you got associated with.
Yeah, so that's the bond that was approved.
Yes,
That's the project
that's
that's coming.
what was going in there, 25% was going, that's public.
So that's over and
domain.
above the 200 or the enterprise fund in general.
Right, okay. So you've been spending a certain amount, now you're gonna be spending more because you need to spend more to do that. The 7% is covering that, plus whatever you've been doing every year, which is a couple of $100,000. Okay, so we're not building up anything, although that money doesn't get paid, because that's coming out of bond money. Some of that money is bond money, and you're not paying that back until
Until the project closes, but there will be bond anticipation notes and whatnot before.
like 2000, it'll be a couple of years down the
couple
road.
years. So but that's why he's proposing ramping it up.
Well, that's right. I mean, it is
So we don't-
collecting money in a sense that you're gonna write a big check in a couple of years, and you wanna have that money to write that check.
And this one is
Well, no, I'm
going
not-
year
I'm
by
not-
year incrementally and not raising it 21%
No,
this year.
one shot, no.
Correct.
But what
So
would
that's
the
the alternative.
requested,
You could wait 2 more years
And it goes up by
and
21.
it goes up 21%. This, we thought would be more palatable for people's budgeting purposes
Yeah.
to go up a little more
my
incrementally.
question though is, anytime you talk about like a 7% operational jump, that's huge, right? So, next year, when we're sitting here, if we're sitting here,
Depends on what we vote tonight.
what are you gonna ask for an operational increase? Are we going back to the 2.5%, or is it gonna be another 7% on top of this 7%?
What I'm budgeting is 7% per
3
year
years.
as a rate increase to,
That's what I'm.
and we are trending so that we need to pay that bill when it comes due on an annual basis. We also need to do projects in the interim. So that's why I'm keeping it flat.
So you're talking.
And so like honestly, my operational expense this year was held flat, 0. Knowing that we had to raise the rates to cover all this other stuff. So I'm trying to play both sides and get it down the middle
But you're talking 7% over how many years? You don't know.
each year.
3 years.
3
So in 3 years, it's around 21%.
But at the end of 3 years, you're saying,
He says
I
he doesn't
mean,
know.
all of this is we'll reevaluate year to year.
Yeah.
But what I'm getting at is we have projects and we have bills to pay forever. It's never gonna stop. But, I need to plan on these projects, and I need them to be fundable, and this is how we get there.
But barring any other major surprises, the plan would be after 3 years of those 7% increases to go back to the more 2 to 3% increase
So this
from an
is
operational perspective.
This is covering the fact that our revenue is less than our expenses. We need to correct that. We also have plenty of projects on the horizon, and we have projects that are in planning stages that need to get done. I can't come to you every year and say,
No, no,
here's
I understand.
16%, here's 5%, here's 3%.
I
I'm
think
saying
what would be
think we're in
helpful in the future is, you know, a rate is just a way of liquidating cost, distributing cost, that's all it is, right? What would be helpful is understanding out of the, you know, $17.06 or whatever rate, how much of that is true operations versus
It's
projects?
in my
And-
emails.
and I'm-
Literally sent,
like I said,
literally sent that pie chart.
Yeah, the pie
Okay, so
chart.
that's the.
To show you
Yeah,
exactly.
that's what I'm, like I
exactly what
said,
you
lots,
want.
lots of
The man
emails.
tailored his email to you.
Thank you. Lots of operations, emails, and.
Well, I mean, this is a very complex topic,
I
and this is the
understand,
deepest we've ever got into it, and, I mean, I am here every day, living it, so I just want you guys to know, I didn't come to
Okay.
this
No, no, no,
decision lightly
I
to,
understand.
you know, so the taxpayers and the ratepayers, this is,
Chuck, I'm sorry, which email should I be looking at?
it's all in the same chain, so if you go to any one of my emails, it's me responding to a previous email.
2:00 this afternoon.
Okay,
No,
I think
the
this
rate
is
one
picture.
came this,
Thank you.
the pie chart one
Pie
came
chart.
this morning.
I've got 210.
That was the one that had the
So I've got a
family of
question,
2, family of 7, family of 5.
Okay,
got a question about the pie charts. And you said it didn't quite match up, but
oh, God.
water revenue went down in fiscal year '23, and sewer revenue went up. Now, water eventually becomes sewer.
Not all of it.
Not all of it,
But
but
not-
a good chunk of it. I'm just wondering why, do you understand why that happened, or is that just because things don't quite match
So
up?
like I said, seasonally and year to year, nothing is ever the same. So
Water-
that could have been a rainy year where a lot of people
This
turned
went
off their
down,
irrigation.
this went up.
It also could have been, coming out of COVID where we saw differences in work from home, not work from home, going back to work, going back. So there's been significant external factors that have,
Last summer was rainy.
and then there
Which
was,
means that the irrigation, which does not go into the sewer.
and then there was one year where we actually had a mandatory ban. So like, all of these things happen every year based on the situation. That's why, I'm saying 7%, tell me what really happens and I'll tell you what we have to do. But so I'm just doing the best I can to make sure things get there. And I'm trying to give you all the information that I think you want and that you've asked for. I don't know how else to do it.
So when we go like this, the water goes on, that's all we care about.
Yeah, I mean, most people, they just want that, turn it on,
There's
flush.
also
It's
the
mostly
opening
flush.
the bill, if I
Right,
may.
so I do think Manchester, there's no doubt that we are not covering our costs with what we ask people to pay for water. I know what my relatives pay in other cities and towns, and they see my bill, they're like, you're kidding, right? So there's no doubt we have to right-size things. But I'm just trying to think about the best way to communicate this to people, because we're talking about some pretty big jumps, and we shouldn't undertake that lightly. So I think you also sent some
I
trend
agree.
charts, and I think, so that's what people remember, is what they paid last year, so I'm looking for that.
Right, so
The,
we also need to remember that voters approved both the operating and the new debt.
Yeah.
So voters have approved that, so now the question is, how do we actualize the payments that people have authorized?
So when we talk later on in the agenda about the budget process, we want to maybe revisit this conversation as a way to do things differently when we ask people to vote on stuff. Because they vote on stuff and may not fully grasp how that's gonna impact the bill that they get. And maybe we can do things a little differently. I think it's subject for discussion.
Our rates right now are, the task force looked at rates in surrounding communities. And we're about in the middle,
Not sewer.
not
No,
sewer.
we're
This
trying
is
to
rates.
talk about sewer. at the
Okay, I'm
moment.
sorry, sewer, that's correct.
We've already dismissed water.
But
Are there people that have meters just for irrigation that don't pay sewer? How many of those are out there?
So it's kind of a combination of irrigation and deducts. And so there's roughly 600, and that's in that 2,600. So there's about 2,000, main services and about another 600 second meters, roughly. give or take.
And then there are people who are not on the sewer at all,
Correct, yeah, so about
which is.
2/3 of the town is on sewer and the other third is septic.
Okay, so what we're talking about at the moment, I hope, is the sewer rates going up by 7% to cover the bonds that the town has already voted for, following the division of costs that the town has used consistently, which is to say that 75% of sewer capital goes on the sewer rate and 25% goes on the tax rate. So this is what has been practiced in town for at least a decade, probably several decades. And you're saying that there's a need to significantly increase the sewer rate to meet that, the bond, your 3/4 of that bond. I'm sorry, it's not the enterprise funds.
Yep.
And you're proposing that we do that stepwise rather than going up 21% in 1 year. Is that
Is
fair?
Is there a way to phrase our approval here so that there's some kind of a check at the end of the 3 years?
There's a check every year.
Well, we're relying on
Free Monday.
we're relying on institutional memory here.
Mhm.
And that's what I'm not comfortable with. I'm perfectly fine, with raising the sewer rates 7% over the next 3 years. That's it. That's where my comfort ends.
I mean, I'm only asking for this year,
Yes,
assuming that we're gonna
yes,
stay on the
because the
same path.
voters have already voted for that.
Yeah, we're not voting for all three, we're just
But-
voting for one.
But I'm concerned that the 5 of us may not be sitting here 3 years from now, and the town administrator may not be sitting here 3 years from now. And we rely on institutional memory to know that we're supposed to stop increasing it by 7%. And I want to ask Greg, is there some way to memorialize this conversations such that we, it's clear that there is no intent to raise it by 7% every year after that?
So, I mean, I'm sorry,
Part of the
I'd just like to say, like, I would be happy to annually report our last 4 quarters of revenue versus expenses. And that's really what's driving 7%. And I think if it's reasonable that that trend goes back down and there's retained earnings in the enterprise fund, that there's not a 7% increase. That's never been our approach.
Can that be a
And so I
one-liner
think
in the
that
motion?
would be how it goes.
I think we need a,
Obviously, you can memorialize it in the minutes for your vote, but you can also, I don't.
If the board is different, even if the board is the same, we have this discussion every year.
Right,
And we-
you
yes.
can't
I mean, I'll put it in my memo.
bind future
No.
boards, but.
But Chuck will be here every year at about this time, and he will show whoever is sitting in these seats.
Correct.
And
I mean, I think it's a fair thing for me to put in my memo. Every year, there has to be a memo coming from my department that says, these are our
So
proposed
what-
rates
what
and
I'm-
this is why.
right.
I'll add a line to that memo, so that next year, when whoever is sitting in your seats reviews last year's memo, it says, we will be looking at revenue versus expenditures every year from now forever.
I think what might be helpful though is, because your team does a lot of great work to try and hold down expenses, and I don't think we see that information as clearly. Because, like I said, just high-level conversation, I'm gonna increase my budget by 7% every year. That's, that doesn't happen a lot in the private sector unless a company is growing, right? So usually there's some sort of a force to try and hold down expenses. And I know your team is doing a lot in that area, but that's the piece of the puzzle that's not visible. How are you holding down expenses to try and minimize the pain on the residents? Because usually, you'd look at both sides of the equation before approving a rate.
Yeah. So I mean, that is part of the budget process. So like every year, I would say it's incumbent on all of us and anybody that's interested to review the budget. But yeah,
Yeah, I think you're just
Tell me what
looking
you
for a
want.
road back to how we got here. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that.
So, we are where we are, but maybe this is a conversation, like I said, when we talk about revisiting how we do the budgeting. just to make sure we have the right checks in place to keep expenses under control. A lot of assumptions go into expenses and maybe we need to help with some of those assumptions.
Okay, are we ready? Is there public comment on the sewer rates? Ms. Owen? Yes, please.
Rena Ivani, 28 Pine Street. I think, and Kathy can correct me, what she's suggesting is that with regard to the 7%, that there be some sort of sunset provision which will force to memorialize it, will force the issue at some point. I don't think we're second guessing anyone.
Right.
I just think you have a valid point. So, that's my
Yeah, I don't know what the language is in municipal government.
Right.
I totally understand,
yeah.
what I say,
It's a
we're only asking to approve this year's rates.
Yeah.
Any subsequent rate, that was just my kind of best estimate going forward. There's no, you don't have to vote on it, just like you didn't have to vote on the capital rate. Table it, don't do it, I mean, it's not a sunset issue, it's just, you don't like the 7% rate, tell me what you want it to be. Or, reasons why it needs to go down. I understand, I'm just trying to.
I think, unless there's further comment, I disagree that we need a sunset provision because we're not voting on the rate of increase in subsequent years. We're only voting on this year. The fact that Chuck has said that in his opinion, we will need more 7% that's,
We'll revisit that.
Yeah.
we will
we'll
revisit that
Years.
next year.
in the year end.
We can, yeah.
Well,
A little
this is
bit.
not, yeah, you want an example of kicking the can.
Yeah, right, we're gonna talk about something else.
Right.
No, I appreciate that, and
Okay,
the
so-
rates a shift.
Do I have a motion to close the public hearing for the volumetric, yes?
It's Jim.
That's me, but go ahead.
He's not sure he wants to.
Yeah.
To close the public hearing for the volumetric rates of the water and sewer.
Okay.
That's,
But we're leaving the,
we're just closing the public hearing for those things. That way we can vote on them with the hearing closed. We will continue the hearing for the capital over surcharge on the water rates.
okay, so I move the select board close the evidentiary portion of the hearing for volumetric
Rates.
rates and the sewer,
Volumetric rates for water and sewer.
water and sewer.
Second,
John,
Yes.
Ann says yes,
yes.
Kathy says yes, Brian, Jeff,
Yes, yep,
okay. Then we will continue the hearing on the capital surcharge on
We need a
the-
vote on this?
So you should.
We can vote on it, yes.
Okay, I move to continue the public hearing on the capital portions of the, is it water and sewer? Or just water, just water?
second,
Second,
So, I'm sorry,
Sorry, correct me,
so it just needs to be a date certain, so,
to the,
so July 15th
July.
meeting.
to the
At
July
6
15th.
at 6:30.
At 6:30.
at 7.
7 o'clock.
At 7.
That's fine, that's right,
Did
that's
you get
right.
all that, Debbie? Didn't you mean, okay, you got it? You got it. She's good.
Second.
Okay. John,
Yes.
Ann says yes.
Yes.
Kathy says yes, Brian,
Yes.
Jeff.
yes,
Okay. So, now we need to take a vote on the volumetric rate for water,
And sewer.
So I
And sewer.
move to set the water rates and sewer rates, the volumetric rates as presented here. Do you want me to read them off as part of the? I'll read them off. For the water rates, per 100 cubic foot for the first 1,700 cubic feet used, that's $7.21. For the next tier, 1,701 to 5,700 cubic feet used at $8.14. The next tier, 5,701 to 16,000 cubic feet used, $10.80. And the next tier at 16,001 to 39,000 cubic feet used at $14.18. Those four are for water. And the sewer rate to be set at $17.06 per 100 cubic feet.
Amendment?
Yeah.
On the last water rate, that's 16,000 plus.
Right.
Oh, just 16,000 plus,
Plus.
thank you very
Go
much.
ahead.
Friendly
I
amendment,
wonder
yep.
what happened.
Accepted. Anybody want a second all?
Second.
Sorry.
Could you repeat that for the?
No. Watch the recording.
Jeff,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Anne says yes?
John, yes.
Okay. So, I think we don't have to stand there and look unhappy anymore.
No, I'm not happy. We'll get there one way or another.
Thank
you
you
all.
very much.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thanks, Chuck.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is the town hall flagpole petition. Greg, you want to?
So, we've received request by a number of residents requesting that the flagpole at the War Memorial be used only for the American POW flag, and that a second flagpole be placed on the town common for any ceremonial or ceremonial flags. So that's the request. That's before you. You've talked about this issue for the last couple of years, 3 years. We've gone back and forth on it, but you, in the end, have always concluded that that the main flagpole can accommodate the few requests for ceremonial or ceremonial flags. Typically, we have one, maybe two a year. So it's really been the June Pride celebration that you have declared as part of your policy to endorse that, and for any endorsed event as a town event that you would support a flag. So that's the one that has come before you.
I supported the flagpole. Okay, I don't support it on town common. I think that, and I've said this before, I like the open space that we have there, the flagpole, but I think it could be a multi-purpose flagpole. I prefer it, and I've talked to a lot of people in town, why not at Masconomo, up by the point. I've talked to Parks and Rec, there are times when there's no flag for a pledge of allegiance or the national anthem during events at the park. I think if you put it way out at the point, fly the flag, state flag, even a town flag, I think at some point, not that it become iconic, but it becomes, as boaters come into the harbor, they can, as they get closer, they can see it, they can be seen from the commuter rail. And I think that done properly, it's gonna look good there. I think it belongs there. A demountable pole or a telescoping pole, I don't see that at all. I think that just a recipe for disaster. Kids swinging on it, whatever's gonna happen, hanging their hats on it. And as I said in a previous meeting, I just don't want it, not in the, I got chastised by saying littering I just want to keep, I like the common clean. I like the way it looks now. And I think that town could benefit from the pole down at Masconomo where there isn't anything right now. That's my feelings.
I'm also an advocate for the flagpole. I am okay with it on the town common. I can be swayed to also Masconomo, but I think the town common is probably the most public place for it. You know, for the reasons that have been expressed before. That's why I think I should have a second one, simply because the memorial flagpole really should be for the Veterans Memorial, and that's.
It's not a memorial, it's a.
Or I should say Veterans on a roll. But I think it should go there. I've been kind of tracking how things have been working with other communities over the past say, couple of years, there now are probably about 30 communities that have policies with regard to flagpoles. About a third of them don't want any kind of commemorative flagpole. About a third say, yes, you can have a commemorative flag, but they're silent on what flagpole it's gonna be. And then there are about a third of the communities that have said it can be a commemorative flagpole only. In other words, the flagpole that has the US flag on it can only have the US flag and the POW flag. I think we're rather unique here in that we have one flagpole in town that's really the principal flagpole in town. And it happens to be in an honor roll setting. It's not just a flagpole in front of a town hall. So there isn't any other town that I've seen that has that particular unique situation that confounds things, of course. So my position is, I've seen the diagram. I think the plot plan that Chuck said, and he suggested a flagpole that could fit out there on the common and be a collapsible, actually removable. It becomes flush with the ground, so it doesn't stick up at all, and then would be mounted whenever there are flags that the select board would deem appropriate to put out there based upon a review of this situation.
So, the petition that's in front of us is a little bit different than what we discussed last year. I personally don't see the need for another flagpole. I just don't think we have the volume of requests to warrant it. However, you know that old saying, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So we've been talking about this for about 3 years now, and we haven't scratched the itch or answered the questions that the residents have around why we allow commemorative flags on that flagpole. I think to the average person walking by, they, whether resident or visitor, the honor roll looks like a memorial. Whether it was intended to be that or not, it looks like a memorial. I think the town made a mistake by putting the town flagpole in a place where it could be misconstrued what its purpose is.
Their
I'm
argument
just,
is that,
you asked me,
their argument is not that it's the town flagpole,
I-
it's their flagpole.
well, that's what I'm getting there, so
Okay, sorry.
apologies for being a little long-winded. But I feel that the visual that's on the town common is confusing. It causes confusion. So we are where we are. I personally do not see the need for another flagpole, but I can support bringing this conversation to a town meeting where I think that needs to happen. I think we have some people here with views that are, we heard last year, we heard the year before. I think there are people who may or may not be in this room with different views, but I just feel that this is a conversation that may be best adjudicated at a town meeting because it involves some type of expense anyway. I would not be in favor of the collapsible flagpole. I think that does a disservice and is disrespectful to whatever flag would be on it. I hate to use the term cheesy, but it sounded cheesy to me. I think that is disrespectful. If we talk about putting a second flagpole on the town common, I honestly believe the right thing to do would be to hire a landscape designer to find the right spot. I think we got into this situation by maybe not carefully considering the right spot as to where the flagpole could be. So I think all of that involves some expense and conversation, and if the town wants to do that, fine. I personally don't support it, but I just think the town might need to have that conversation. That's kind of where my head is at. You didn't ask Jeff.
I'm sorry, Jeff.
Yeah, I 100% support the second flagpole or some second means for people to display commemorative flags. I've talked with a lot of veterans, a lot of families of veterans who are no longer with us. To me, that flagpole, the way it's set up, is an integral part of the honor roll. A lot of the veterans don't want another flag there. I can understand that, and, you know, there's a controversy here that's gonna keep going on and on and on if we don't do something, and I feel that we should do something. You know, we're making one group very happy, and then we're making another group very upset, and I don't think that's, with the circumstances around the honor roll, I don't think that's something we should be doing. I think we need to come up with another answer, whether it's Mascanoma Park. I don't have a preference on what it is or where it is, but I really believe something else needs to happen.
My take is that the honor roll and its flag, somebody else, is not the town flagpole. We need a town flagpole. I think it should be on the town common. I think it should be taller and more prominent than the flagpole on the honor roll, and that it should fly the US flag and every day be lighted properly. And when there is a commemorative flag, it flies underneath that. And I think it should be a big, prominent flag. And we should, I agree with Kathy, hire a landscape architect and make it as attractive as possible. I think putting it off in another park, it demeans our celebration. No, Mascanoma Park is not the center of the town. The common is the center of the town,
We can agree to disagree.
I'm sure. We've all disagreed in various ways. So,
And again, my intention is not to hide the flag, okay? That's, I mean, and I just think that actually, on the point, that Mascanoma is a prominent place.
So I like what Ann said though about, because I was thinking along the same lines, that the average person walking by thinks that's the honor roll, a memorial flagpole, because they don't understand the history, nor should they. The visual is wrong from a town standpoint. And if we do put another town flagpole with the American flag, it should absolutely be taller and more prominent than anything else we might have on the town common. That I could support. I still think, it sounds like it would involve some expense, and we may still need to have this discussion at a town meeting. We could hear various people. I don't know if how many people are on the line right now that want to express their views, but I just don't know whether folks think a town meeting discussion is valuable or not. I just throw that out there.
So I've just got two follow-up comments. I agree that we probably should consult with somebody and say, what is the best spot? Because I think it was
I think Chuck may not be the best.
nothing personal, Chuck, wherever you are.
Yes.
But, so I agree with that, but I also think that flagpole that we put up on the common will be a commemorative flagpole. I don't think it should be a flagpole that has a US flag. There's been a lot of discussion in a lot of communities. When there's a US flag on a flagpole, that's it. So I stand by that.
That is not our policy.
No, not right now.
And
So,
I think having an empty flagpole standing there is
Well,
not a good symbol.
11 months out of the year is a problem.
Right.
well, I mean, you could put up a town flag. I mean, there are a number of things that you could put up there instead. So,
The only
no,
town
no
flag I
question.
see is flying at Harbor's Point.
Okay, anything further, Jeff?
No, I didn't know if you wanted to hear from the public or.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we had a chance and there will be, opportunities for us to, and to rebut or agree, with the discussion as it goes along. As usual, I will take comments from people in the room. John, could you make sure that no one speaks for more than 2 minutes?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
I'll just-
Yes.
Don't care.
Don't get
Bruce, please.
Stand up. Bruce Heisey, 49 Pleasant Street. I am on the committee for the Veterans Honor Roll, And I also, when Dan Senical and the select board came to us to have a new Veterans Honor Roll, and that was a section of land that was given to us. And yes, there was a town hall flagpole on that property. And that's what makes everyone think that this one now is a town hall flagpole. But it wasn't, because that was taken down by the town, and I thought it was gonna be replaced someplace else, but it did not. But anyways, I am in full support of yours with another flagpole on the property. Leaving the Veterans Honor Roll to be the Veterans Honor Roll. And the American Legion would like to take the forefront of that and make sure that it gets well maintained and the proper lighting and everything else is, and the whole bit. But I want to say, so I support your motion to put a separate flagpole on the town common.
Not a motion, it is just a suggestion, and I do not have a majority of the board with me.
Okay.
So this is not a topic that we're going to settle tonight, but thank you for your comments.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, John Sackle, 48 Pleasant Street. I also support a town flagpole on the common. And why would it have to be a bare pole all year long? You could fly the American flag on that pole, but then when someone wants to use it, that flag can come down. And the other thing is you do not fly a flag higher than the American flag. So if you have a huge pole, you do not fly a separate flag higher than the American flag, which is on the pole. So they would have to be the same height. And then if you fly under.
Thank you. Right, we would need to be careful not to put a secondary flag higher than the American flag on the honor roll platform, but we could fly the American flag higher.
Correct.
Okay.
And the other, this is a nice idea to have a second flagpole on Masconomo Park. It's beautiful. You know, you could have, you know, we can't have more than one flagpole, and you have an American flagpole, an American flag at the end of Masconomo.
Let's get through one at a time.
Well, let's, you know, keep open.
No,
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Anyone online?
Mr. Gilbert, Gary Gilbert.
Gary, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, and we can see you.
Okay, hi, thanks. Let's see, I support what Ann Harrison is suggesting. I think there should be a single pole, it should be relocated. My dad was a veteran, he was a foot soldier in World War II, and that was a big part of his life. And I know that he felt gay people are part of our nation, it's part of what he fought for. The Commons, having a flag on the Commons, I mean, the word Commons alone suggests all of us as a community. And if we were to exclude some people that are part of our society on a different pole, that's an exclusion. And it's not an exaggeration to say, and we should keep it in mind. I mean, one of the issues relating to gay people is kids are committing suicide on a regular basis in our society because they're excluded by our society and sometimes by their parents, and it's tragic. And as long as that goes on, I think we need to take every step we can take to recognize that we're all part of a nation working together, and we should be supporting each other. And I think it's very symbolic to exclude a sizable part of our population, and it's potentially tragic on some levels. And I have a great deal of respect for veterans. But I think they're part of our nation too. We're a group and we're supposed to work together. Those are my 2 cents.
Beth?
I just wanted to say that I don't think we're just talking about the LGBTQ flag. There's gonna be other things coming forward. So first of all, I think that a separate flagpole should be out on the town commons, because what Gary's saying is true. We don't want to exclude any group from the recognition, and this is a very noticeable place. People driving by will see it.
But the Veterans Honor Roll is for a specific purpose, which is to honor the veterans who enrolled from Manchester. And it's not for any other reason, and it's not, this is nothing to do with LGBTQ or any other group. It's just about the fact that that is a Veterans Honor Roll, and that's, should be exclusive to them. Thank you.
Yes.
Rena Iavani, 28 Pine Street. All of us are here because, you know, we come together as a community, and I don't think the intent is to exclude anybody. What I want to say is I agree with you, and I'm hoping that everyone keeps an open mind here. I gave a lot of research to the select board on the history of how the honor roll came about. And certainly the design is, with the flagpole being integral, for the honor roll and not for another purpose. So listening to everyone's concerns, whether it be veterans or Gary's concern or whoever, I think we have to learn, and I'm sorry to say it this way, but honestly, we have to learn to listen to everyone's concerns. And if there's a way of meeting in the middle and doing, and actually coming up with a resolution, then I'm for that. And I don't think that is a major ordeal. So having the restoration is what I'm calling it, because we took down the municipal flagpole. We took it down and we cut it and we dumped it in the DPW site. And I made sure that I told everyone about this as well. I think that what we should do is establish and restore the flagpole. And I think I'd like to see it on the common, because again, in parity, in equity with everyone. And you know, quite frankly, the town itself might want to use that the restored municipal flagpole for its own purposes. Juneteenth, Black History Month, Women's Month. We could go on and on with the federal proclamations. And quite frankly, we adopt many of those, like we have, you know, recently. So it's not about a single group, it's about all of us. And quite frankly, I cannot understand why we wouldn't look tonight for a solution here. It's not impossible. What we're doing here is people are coming together and we're looking for a solution. The solution is 2 flagpoles, parity, equity. It would look enormously beautiful on our common, to show not only the honor roll, to honor the veterans, but also another flagpole to restore it, since we cut it down and trashed it, to restore it with for municipal purposes. So I feel very strongly about this, Anne, and quite frankly, this is about the 3rd time or the 4th that the select board with different members has discussed this very issue. I think it's time for a solution. These people are spending their time here, our veterans, to come forward to be heard. So basically, I'm passionate about it. Thank you for allowing me to speak on it and providing you with some information on it, but I appreciate that. Let's look for a solution here. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes?
Yeah, I I wrote an email to the board at the first meeting, and I think a second flagpole is appropriate, a town flagpole. I also had suggested that you could put flag staffs on the columns of the town hall for the purpose of groups, clubs who should be recognized. Women's Month, all these different months, all these different achievements from our great students, and things, and like all the different groups in town, the women's club and all, you know, all the, everything. And it should, and why couldn't we have on those columns have a flag staff that would be open for banners and flags of different groups. And a town flagpole for the purpose of the American flag flying somewhere on the common. There's plenty of room and, you know, can't have so many flagpoles. Look how beautiful the harbor looks.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, my take is that the project we're talking about, if we want to consider a town flagpole, is something that should be brought into the budget, talked about, and it's, I'm not ready to force a vote right now. And I, you know, we understand that this is a hot topic in town. And we understand that there are strong and divided opinions. And I think we're not ready to come down in any particular one of them. Jeff?
What about a motion to look into the cost and design of the second flag?
Thank you, that would be fine.
I make the motion to look into the cost and design of a second flagpole on the common.
Friendly amendment? To be at least as tall or taller than the one at the honor roll site.
Yeah, I mean, that would be part of the design.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ready to vote?
I just want to make a comment.
Sure.
I hear everyone, I mean, my suggestion at Mascanoma Point was try to be a compromise, okay? I have zero problem with the second pole on town hall, on the common, okay? I was trying to kill two birds with one stone. I still believe the flagpole would look really, really good out in Mascanoma Point, okay? But if the,
Please, no side conversations.
but as far as I'm concerned, I can support the second flagpole here. That's my comment.
Okay. Looking for a vote? One more comment.
One more comment. There has been many private discussions about donations. People are willing to donate to support a second flagpole that wouldn't cost the town anything, and donate it to the town, different groups and individuals. So looking into costs and you know, having the pole put in the correct place and having, you know, maybe even working with an architect to find that there's a lot of people that would like to donate privately to have this done, so it's not going to, you know, that isn't going to be an issue with the town.
Thank you. Any further comment before we vote?
So
No.
I guess my comment would be, looking into this, there are really two things that we're looking at here. Where the flagpole's going to go, and I think there's still some question of whether this is a removable flagpole or a permanent flagpole.
No,
I
that's
would-
not
I
a
would
question
support
in
it.
my mind,
I wouldn't
absolutely
support it.
not.
I wouldn't support it.
Okay.
We don't want a second-rate flagpole.
All right, well, that'll probably come out
It
in
would be
discussion.
the most prominent flagpole on the town common, that is what I
Okay.
believe. We designed, the most prominent,
It would be the town flagpole.
the town flagpole.
Okay.
Yes, please.
I can get a quote from the flagpole company that we had install that one, to get a separate flagpole for the town common.
I appreciate your offer, I appreciate the offers of support for the funding, but I think we really need to make this a town flagpole.
Okay.
And not muddy these waters even more.
Right. I think that's how we got into this situation in the first place.
Right.
Well, if the donations are given with the idea that it will be a municipal flagpole, we'll know under the select board and the town, I mean, it shouldn't be an issue. I mean, you can donate to
Okay,
things all the
what
time.
we're currently discussing is investigating with a landscape architect, a location and a design. We can, when we have a location and design that we like, then we can look at fundraising in any of the possible ways.
Okay. Awesome.
Okay, how we,
I think there was a
Oh, yes.
comment behind Mr.
I'm sorry.
Dave McBoo.
Yep.
I'd like to make one comment. And I think that there should be one flagpole in their common. Every generation loses a little something. Everyone tries to accommodate another group. Some things should, in my opinion, stay the same. There's always been one flagpole in the center of town with the American flag on it. And since then, they had the MIA POW flag. In my opinion, that's enough. You can't have every organization having their political view or whatever. One flagpole, the American flag, and in this case, the MIA POW flag. You want to have a flagpole somewhere else with other interests, have it somewhere else. One flagpole in the center of town. That's the way it's always been, and that's the way it should be, my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion as well?
There is a motion.
There's a motion
Motion and a second.
and a second. There's always a provision for discussion after the motion and second, and before then, but I think we're ready to vote.
I think so too.
Mhm.
John?
Yes.
Anne says yes, Kathy?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Jeff? Okay, thank you. This concludes the discussion of flags and flagpoles for this evening. Thank you all very much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Yep, well, for the people who are here as candidates, you have my apology for the delay. However, we have 3 candidates here for interviews, and I am terrible at reading names.
That would be me, Susan Postustillo.
Thank you very much.
Everyone's terrible.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, thank you for your patience. Could you explain, just briefly, you don't have to stand up, but if you'd like to, that's fine. Your interest and background and, why you're here asking
Sure.
us to appoint you.
Absolutely. I've been a resident of Manchester with my family since 2014. I recently retired, 2 years ago, January of 2022, for my full-time job as a prosecutor with the U.S. Attorney's Office in Boston. And since that time, I've been doing some voluntary legal work with the Conservation Law Foundation, which focuses on a lot of water and sewer issues and things of that nature. And also, more importantly for these purposes, working, being a driver for the Meals on Wheels program once a week here in Manchester. And as a driver, what I came to realize is a lot of these folks just really need someone to interact with and someone to talk to and chat with and feel as if they have a community. Many of them basically don't have anybody but their caregivers. And so my delivery meals for 2 minutes of their lives on a Friday morning is a highlight, and that's a rather sad state of affairs. And so I came to grow, I've had compassion for the plight of our senior citizens, and I just feel as if I want to do more to help them. I know that Senior Citizens Center is a big issue right now, and I fully support that some kind of center be developed, so people can congregate and spend time together. And now that I have time that I'm retired, I'd be happy to help on that regard.
Thank you.
Jeff, I'm sorry, John,
Okay.
you don't look a little bit.
Maybe I ought to grow a beard. No, really.
But that's exactly the only thing that's missing.
Well, good. Susan, thank you for raising your hand on this. And I don't know, you've been involved with some other, town organizations?
I was a
Or
member
just-
of the cultural council
Okay,
for,
I saw
I think,
that.
2 or 3 years prior to
Okay.
that. That time I was full-time working, so I honestly can say I probably did not put my full devotion into
Okay,
that.
but you have
council
some
at the time.
familiarity. Have you spoken with anybody in the Council on Aging at this point?
I have not, and that's, no, I have not.
So I'm glad to see that you're starting to get familiar with a few of the seniors, especially the ones that are confined, and maybe the senior center initiative will work out. I noticed you've got a problem with Wednesdays right now,
Well, yes, just.
only through September. Is this because you're
Well, hopefully-
pessimistic about the Red Sox
I was gonna say
opportunities
hopefully
to get to
through October,
October?
but right now it's the Red Sox season will be ending in September. And if they have a game on Wednesdays, I'm there, not here, so.
Okay, all right.
Ye of little faith.
I am devoting, I haven't seen so many Red Sox games in my life this season. So,
Is that a regular role?
I'm sorry?
Is that a regular, it's not just for this season, it's?
Well,
it's
I got this part-time job for this year, and I'll have to decide if I want to do it again. Although I do know if, I'm just an usher, and so what I did learn is that if they do win the World Series, I will be walking around with a World Series ring, so keep that in mind.
Oh.
You have to keep
Gotta
the
keep that
faith.
job.
Okay.
So how do you, and they've taught you how to wipe down the seats?
Well, you know what, they didn't teach us, but that's something kind of on the job training again, so.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
So is your flexibility, I think the COA is probably flexible on times.
That's my only other commitment I have right now.
Okay.
So I think I don't think it should be an issue. In fact, I looked at it, like, on the council website, it doesn't seem as if they had any meetings since May or something.
Yeah, they probably skip maybe 3 months a year, and we're like
Okay.
in the middle of that right now.
Okay. All right.
So,
So as far as I can tell, my only issue with time would be during the baseball season.
okay, well, I think that we probably can move the COA meeting if there's one person that can't accommodate that, because frankly, most of the people on that board are retired and have some flexibility
Okay,
in
great.
terms of timing. So I think we can work around that, but your familiarity with some of the senior population is definitely a plus.
Mhm.
And the COA is gonna have to take a bigger role here as we move into building a senior center.
Yeah, I do realize that'll be a huge project.
Thank you for raising your hand.
Just thank you for stepping up. It's great to work with the seniors, because I know a lot of them are, can't get out.
Mhm.
And that you're going further into this, that's great, so thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll just echo.
Yep.
Okay, thank you for stepping up.
Saying thank you, I would encourage you though to reach out to, chair that committee. It does look like they do have meetings on Wednesdays.
Mhm.
But I think just, as John mentioned, that can be, adapted to.
Okay.
What time do you have to be in Boston?
Depends on the game time, but
Seven-
usually I'd say 7 o'clock game, so I have to be there by 5, which means I have to leave here 3:30, 4-ish.
I guess my comment would be if it's not possible to rearrange the meetings, I would ask that you accept an appointment subject to their being able to rearrange their meetings. I think it'd be, Diane,
We meet in the morning.
they meet in the morning.
Oh,
Well, that's not what it says on the website, that's what.
No,
that's why I raised it. 'cause I saw
Generally,
it.
their meetings are at 4 PM, I
4:30
think.
PM,
My
second
experience
Wednesday
has
of the
been-
month.
I mean, I've attended several of them. It's
Okay.
generally 4 o'clock.
Okay.
Okay, I'd be happy to accept the appointment subject to available.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Having a member who's absent makes it very hard to run a committee. But thank you. You're welcome. Okay, are we ready to make a decision?
I am. How about I move that the select board appoint Susan Pospillo to the council on aging.
Teach us again.
Teach us again.
Look how it's spelled out, it's Pos with still.
Pospillo, thank you.
It's exactly how it's spelled.
Would help if I put my glasses on as well. Susan Pospillo, excuse me, to the Council on Aging for a term to expire on June 30th, 2027, subject to the meeting with the chair of the committee regarding scheduling the meetings on a different day.
Second.
John?
Yes.
Anne says yes. Kathy?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think you're gonna be great.
Great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. We have two candidates for Parks and Rec, Ellen Flatley and Paul Sturetti. Thank you. Ellen, please.
Sure.
Ask you for a couple of minutes on.
Hi, I'm Ellen Flatley. I'm 23 Lincoln Street. Thank you for taking your time to speak with me this evening. I think Parks and Recs of any community, especially a small community like ours, is vital to the community. The parks, beautiful parks, and a robust recreation program makes a town and a community a desirable place to live. I think currently our Parks and Recreation Department does a great job at that. So I wanted to give a little bit of my background to see where I could potentially help in that. I was born and raised in Manchester. I have fond memories of attending Parks and Recreation programs. I went to playground my whole life. In fact, I wish I could still go to playground and that could be hat day and I could have post and go to Canopy Lake Park. I know how important playground is, not only as I don't know, do you graduate from playground? I don't know, as an alumni of playground, but how important that is for the children, but also for the families in town. As a teenager and a young adult college student, I worked at the beach. Actually, my first year I worked at the beach. This is maybe tell you how old I am. The beach was still being operated by the police department. But my second year, I transferred over to the Parks and Recreation Department. So I'm intimately aware of the operations of the sort of crown jewel of our Parks Department, Singing Beach, and I know the challenges that I can bring as well. Professionally, my professional life, how this all comes into play. I've worked in tourism for the last 15 years, specifically in the sort of sales and marketing side of things. I lived in New York for 11 years, and I worked at 2 New York museums. I worked at the Intrepid Sea and Space Museum, which if you don't know is an aircraft carrier in the middle of the Hudson River. And what I did there is I ran the overnight program. So primarily it was for Cub Scouts. Cub Scouts would come aboard the aircraft carrier and they would sleep aboard and have a night of programming. And I did everything for that program from soups to nuts, from the conception to the planning to the budgeting to the sales and marketing of it. I was on the phone with Scout leaders selling it. I was even getting on the mic at night, introducing the programming and getting all the Cub Scouts excited to sleep on very uncomfortable cots all night. So from a event management in a recreation setting for youth and family programming, I do have experience in that and on a fairly large scale. Also at my time in New York, I worked at the 9/11 Memorial Museum. I was there for over 6.5 years. And I was part of, again, I was on the sales and marketing side, so my primary function was working with third-party ticket brokers, which is actually who I now work for. I work for one of our third-party ticket brokers that I worked with at 9/11. But our goal at the 9/11 Museum was to create this public space that had a lot of stakeholders, emotional stakeholders, a very unique site. And while there's not an apples to apples here in Manchester, but being part of the operations and management of a public space that's designed for a very specific reason, and putting that operational design into play was what I did on a day-to-day basis. And also within that, I was was working with the sales and marketing budget, so it was all about revenue growth and budgeting, which I think is a really big part of any sort of recreation programming. So that's how my professional life sort of plays into what I think I can bring to the Parks and Recreation Department. Again, I think our Parks and Recreation Department does a great job. So I think I offer a unique perspective. And just on a personal note, I feel sort of feel a call to help the town and to represent the town in some way. Maybe on a DNA level, not that this should matter, but my family has a strong history of public service going back generations. So I think it's in my DNA to help the town somehow, and this is my little footstep into possibly doing that. So, all right.
No, it sounds like you're very qualified, and thank you for coming aboard.
Thanks.
No, I'm good. I was on the Intrepid 2 weeks ago.
Oh, there you go.
I didn't-
Yeah, you should get.
See the Cub Scouts?
Well, yeah.
There's
You know, was it-
totally crawling with
Did they have the
Cub Scouts.
growler when you were there too?
Yep, the Growler, and actually the Concorde too, which I know just came back. So the space shuttle came after I left, but I was part of the effort to get the space shuttle. So at one point we had a rally and I was walking around in an astronaut suit in Grand Central Terminal trying to bring the space shuttle to New York. So welcome New York City.
So I think your experience is wonderful, and I'm curious, given your experience and your experience with Parks and Rec, is there something in particular that you see that you'd like to work on?
Yeah, I think
help shape.
Yeah, exactly. So I am in the unique position. I think a lot of Parks and Rec does a lot of great family programming, and obviously I should do that. Again, it's important to community. But I'm in a unique position. I do not have children, and I would love to see the adult recreation be grown. Especially, I'm an adult that works a sort of typical 9-to-5 type of job. Oftentimes, a lot of the recreation for adults is in the middle of the day. So I would like to look at that adult recreation or recreation for all that might appeal more to adults than to children, having that be expanded, especially in off hours or on hours, depending on what recreation hours are considered on or off.
Thank you. Yeah, and I slept at the Battleship when my son was a Cub Scout in Fall River.
Yeah. I can't imagine.
Hundreds of snoring young men and their dads. It was not the most enjoyable experience.
No, I've been the only one awake in that room, and I know it's an interesting room. So.
I wanted to be a craft carrier to Manchester Harbor.
You do that.
We had an Aegis battleship
Oh, Aegis.
some years ago. John,
Yeah, no,
didn't come in very far.
Good. Ellen, yeah, I want to thank you for raising your hand. Couple of questions. Have you spoken with the head of the Parks Committee yet?
I haven't, because I knew there was another candidate, so I wasn't quite sure what the order of operations was, but of course I would reach out to the director and the committee members as well.
And I'm just curious, in your little byline here, you're kind of exploring lots of different things. You've listed a few committees down there that I guess interested you, and I just wondered if you reached out to any of these folks and said, what do you guys do? Is this something I'm interested in or not? Or
I didn't. I did put that in my application that while this is my primary interest, given my background, I do want to say that I am willing to sort of serve the town in other capacities as well. And I knew there were multiple openings, and I wasn't quite sure what was still open because I think I applied towards the tail end of it. So it was more just a willingness to serve in any capacities where I think my backgrounds might operate or help.
Well, you're an enthusiastic person. You would contribute greatly.
Thank you.
I have no questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you for letting me try to join the Parks and Recs Committee. My name is Paul Stridi. I live on Forester Road. I've lived in town for almost 25 years. My wife grew up here. I have worked very closely with the Parks and Recs Committee and also Parks and Recs Department. I have been on the Manchester Essex Little League Board. I served on that board while my son played Little League for about 8 or 9 years. I also was on the travel basketball board for about 8 years. I was also on the board for the Friends of Memorial Park in Essex, that field project we did over there. Worked closely with all the contractors, Essex DPW, the high school, the athletic department, to get all those dugouts put in, and did a lot of the manual work over there as well for that field. Closer to town, I have recently, about a year ago, started the Manchester Essex Softball Association because, to be honest with you, the field down there for the girls softball just needed a lot of upgrading. Although baseball fields, Little League fields were in top shape, and there wasn't a fair shake for the young female athletes in town with that. So we created this board, we did a lot of fundraising. If you've been down to that field, we've added a scoreboard, fence, cleaned up the dugouts, resurfaced the field. It's really grown our program immensely in the past 2 years. Again, by doing that, working with Cheryl, Heather, and also the Parks and Recs Committee, getting a lot of approval. I was here earlier this year trying to get banners so we could place it down the field. Now that my children have aged out of the youth sports, I now have more time to serve the town, and I'd really like to be a candidate for this job. I'm available. I know a lot of the former members and current members, so but just really want to serve the community, and I think that's my best fit right now.
Kathy?
Same question, given your background and strong connection to Parks and Rec, is there a particular area that you want to focus on, that you think we could be doing things differently in?
There are probably things that I don't know about, like for each different topic. I don't know most of them, but for the fields, I think a lot of the athletic fields are in great shape. Our athletic director with the high school has been phenomenal, working with all of us in the community for all these different fields, even the youth sports, because we share the junior varsity and varsity share the softball field and the Little League field, so there's been a great collaboration, and with Cheryl and Heather at Park and Recs, we've really turned that around. There are also, the beach, there's some ideas I have about, but in some of, like Ellen brought up, I would like to advance to some of the adult sports and recreation in town as well.
I've crossed paths with Paul countless times. Probably you never yelled at me, I'm not sure.
No, you've been
Potential exists.
referees and things in basketball games.
Potential existing. And obviously the resume speaks for itself. And we've seen, there are tangible results to his work. The understanding, of course, is that Parks and Rec is more than just youth sports.
Yes.
And but if you would attack everything with the same zeal that you did with the softball fields and everything you've done for, I think we're in good shape there.
Jim?
Thank you for everything you've already done. That's pretty impressive. And thanks for stepping up to do even more.
Yeah, no, I look at your resume, you've been like a member of Parks and Rec ex officio for, 10 years? for a long time, so you obviously kind of know how things work, and I see where you want to go with the adult angle a little bit more, because when everybody thinks of Parks and Rec, mostly it's kids, to be honest. I don't know, there are very many programs for adults. I guess there are a few, but.
Oh, there are. I think there's yoga. There's a painting program.
Pickleball.
I don't want to go there. Do we have to? No, really. You gotta go there.
Yeah, how do you feel about pickleball?
Yeah, what do you think about?
That's a loaded question. We
And I
shouldn't
will
ask
be honest with
anybody
you, working on that field basically 5 nights a week and everybody
You heard.
back and forth, I think we do have to address the parking issues that we have down there.
Okay.
To be honest with you, and I've worked with Park and Recs to alleviate some of that when there are games going on and stuff, but that's just an aside.
That was really mostly
Yes.
levity.
Yes.
That worked real well, didn't it?
Yeah, really did. Okay, excuse me, I'm choking on my foot.
I don't have any more questions, I don't think.
We have a provision in our appointment policy to delay an appointment if we want to. On the other hand, that's a little unfair to candidates, and so, is it the desire of the committee to make a decision tonight? And this is,
I just got one question for Ellen.
Yeah.
If there are other opportunities on other boards,
Yeah.
is this something you would consider?
Absolutely.
I think, okay, so.
Well, so I guess my thought on this is, we haven't heard from Cheryl.
Okay.
And personally, I think the best committees have a diversity of background, a diversity of thought. Now, we have two strong candidates with strong connections to Park and Rec, so it's not real clear who might offer the newest voice on that committee, and I would be interested in hearing Cheryl's thoughts on that.
That makes sense to me, if everyone else is, we can. John?
Yeah, I'm fine deferring and hearing what Cheryl has to say.
I think it's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we will leave you on tenterhooks for 2 weeks. Thank you both.
So,
Just a point of order, would it be coming back to another select meeting, or would it just be like a email type decision?
We would have Cheryl talk to us in a select board meeting, and we would make a decision in a public meeting. You don't have to be here. I think we would not be looking for more information.
No.
You wouldn't be insulted if you didn't show up.
Miss all the fun?
So I would just
Yes.
also add that you'll certainly be fine for, I guess, Paul, you've worked with Cheryl before, so Ellen, if you wanted to make an appointment and chat with Cheryl.
Now that I know the order of operations,
It's a good
I'll
idea.
do everything I need to do.
Thank you,
You're right.
thank you, Greg.
You're right.
Yes, thank you. Okay,
I'm supposed to make a motion?
no, we're just continuing this discussion at our next meeting on the 15th.
Deb, you want to put me down for that, 2 weeks?
Yeah, we'll do
Yeah.
that.
I'll make sure you get that.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Logan?
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Prescott Logan, and I'm here on my interest in joining the Winthrop Field Committee. I live at 110 Bridge Street, so I live just across from the field. And my wife and 2 kids, we moved into town 2 years ago this month. And I think I just sort of fell into the committee a little bit because we have a right-of-way through our property, so I got to know Mike Chapman, who walked me through how it works, and then we ended up in the field, and he explained how that worked, and I've attended as an observer several of the meetings over the last 2 years and helped out with one of the work days, one of the cleanup last fall. And so Mike said, do you have any interest in joining? I said, absolutely. It's an amazing resource. And I think that we've attended several of the town meetings. I think since moving here, one of the pleasant surprises is what a small town it is and how cool it is to go to a town meeting and get to vote and see people such as yourself putting all this time in. So I think it's probably my turn to start to raise my hand. So I guess this is my way of starting to try and contribute. So I don't think my professional background, other than I like to go out in my yard and play with my toys, chop things down or cut lawns or whatever, but no, I have a passion for the outdoors, and I think it's an amazing resource, so that's my interest.
Yeah.
I have anything.
Well, is it fair to say that you were recruited? So you've spoken to the chair?
Yeah, yes, I've gotten to know, actually the whole committee, so.
Unfortunately, Becky Jakes isn't here anymore, so they're chopping things down is not an issue.
That's right, that's right.
Kathy? No, just thank you very much for stepping up. I always like to see new folks in town.
Yeah.
You know, raise their hand. It's really great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I want to thank you for raising your hand, Prescott. And of course, this committee is made up of your neighbors. That's why you know them all,
Yeah,
because
that's
they're all
right.
around Winthrop Field.
That's true, that's true.
And the fact that you love yard work and live across the street from the place, those are the top two criteria.
Yeah.
I was going to say that it would be, Kathy is interested in having different perspectives. Everybody else on the committee has lived in town since the day one, as far as I know.
Well, that's true. You're probably went to school with Mrs. Winthrop.
So, yes, it sounds like a really good fit. Ready for a motion?
Yep. I move that the board appoint Prescott Logan to the Winthrop Field Committee for a term to expire on June 30th, 2027.
Second.
John?
Yes.
Anne says yes. Kathy?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Yes.
Jeff says yes. Excellent.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Get
Prescott.
your weed whacker.
So you have discussion topics, but with Diane here, I wonder if you could do item 6 before number 5.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Please. Let's take early voting for the state primary.
First of all, I apologize. I wasn't paying attention when I thought that they met in the morning.
Oh.
None of us here has ever made a mistake ever in our lives.
It's really tough being us.
It is. So I have a request for you to vote on the proposed early voting hours. First of all, just to let everyone know, the state primary is Tuesday, September 3rd. It's the day after Labor Day. Early voting is required from Saturday, August 24th through Friday, August 30th. The law says they are to be during the weekday hours. It's the hours of the town hall office. Because we are under 5,000 residents, we are allowed to vote to do less than that. 25, not less than 25% of our hours. Early voting has to be set up every day, has to be taken down every day, and there's computer programming that has to happen every night to log in the voters that come in, et cetera, et cetera. So what I propose is to start at 9 every day as opposed to 8:30. That gives me time to come in, get it all set up, and to close at 4, and only because I like even 9 to 4 or 9 to 6. So I have that time afterwards to put the room back together for meetings, and also to make sure I can go down with the ballots and secure everything and put it all into the computer. So we are doing early voting on that Saturday from 10 to 4, and on that Friday and the 30th from 9 to 11. So I don't think in all there's less hours than traditional town hall hours, but it is the full week. So to do that, I need a vote from you to approve.
Okay, whose job is that?
Well, am I going to make a motion, or do we have any comments?
Do we have?
I did have a question. You mentioned we're allowed to take a vote because we're less than 5,000 residents. Did you mean 5,000 voters?
5,000 voters.
Voters is what I meant, and you have to take the vote,
Okay,
yes.
just want to clarify.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. I know, no worries. I'm good.
Okay. Then I move that the select board approve early voting at Town Hall from Saturday, August 24th through Friday, August 30th. And the hours to be Saturday 10 to 4, Monday to Wednesday 9 to 4, Thursday 9 to 6, and Friday 9 to 11.
Second.
Oh. John?
Yes.
I should ask, is there further discussion or comments from the?
Comments?
John says yes, Anne says yes.
Yes.
Kathy says yes,
Yes.
Brian says yes,
Yes.
Jeff says yes. Done.
I would like to thank you.
Thanks very much.
A couple just notes. So the election day will be at Memorial Elementary School. We'll be voting from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Vote by mail postcards that went out once are going out again. They will all be mailed by July 15th by the state to all voters who have not already requested a vote by mail ballot. Even if you don't want a vote by mail ballot, all voters will be receiving one, just so you're aware. And election officers. I'm gonna throw a shout out there. I reached out to the Democratic Party, the Republican Party. I got 2 volunteers that are interested, but we could use more election officers with all the early voting and the elections coming up. It's a lot of time on everybody, so if you have any suggestions or anybody, please spread the word, have them reach out to me.
Can we have Tiffany post something?
Yes.
Can we have Tiffany do an open call like she does for other groups?
Yeah, we've done that every now and then, but I will ask her again. And I thought I,
In the Tide and, you know,
yeah, that's a good idea to do it
in
again.
the selectmen's section on the Cricket and all of those places that everybody ought to read, and I never do.
I read it every
I
Friday.
actually do too.
And with that, I thank you all very much.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you. Thanks, Doug.
Yep.
Was it gonna be a food truck there on the?
We haven't had a request for a food truck.
Okay, so it has to look.
Thank you. You're doing it.
It's not on my diet, so I don't care. Salad. Just give me a salad truck.
Salad
Okay. Good, going backward to goals.
You still need the pizza, that was the first thing I had in 3 months.
Right, so you had your workshop the other night. Summarize those priorities that you identified. Hopefully I got them right. If I haven't, please speak up and we can correct. But just, if you'd like, I can read down the list, or you certainly can as well.
I don't remember. Is it in your memo or in the packet?
In the memo.
In your memo.
Memo.
As far as the MBTA zoning, again, this is just talking about disseminating information. There will be a request to Harvest Point, probably next week, not too often, to open up the voting machine set during the Festival C for public restrooms and cooling center. Maybe that's a place to set up some signage or some.
Oh, you can set up the district board. Yeah.
So again, that request hasn't been, I haven't made the request yet, I will be. County vote will also on. But I think that once we do that, there's a great opportunity.
Yeah. Super. I hope they're amenable.
That's the way they would be. They've been amenable so far for anything else on a per use basis.
So, yeah, the first one was just assisting with the planning board and the task force and the efforts to get the information out on the proposal for new zoning that would be compliant with the 3A, the MBTA zoning mandate, and we're working towards a fall town meeting, most likely mid-November.
Would it be appropriate to choose a date now?
It'd be wonderful to choose a date. We need to obviously verify with school.
Yeah, verify, but suppose, let me just see if I still have you charging this and see what November looks like. November. Let's see, the Thanksgiving is the 28th, I believe.
Yeah.
How about the 18th, which is a Monday?
Give up a select board meeting.
Give up a select board meeting. We'll meet plenty of times between now and then.
Right, no, I'm just saying, that's
Yeah.
the only thing.
It's, that's when we typically have our, town meetings are typically on Mondays.
Yep.
So if we could start checking with the school and Alan and,
Yep.
everyone else. I know Alan is already working with the school's AV people to deal with the possibility that we have to have, 2 rooms. And the 2 rooms would be probably the Memorial School gym and the high school auditorium. And he's working with the AV, that person from the district and other people to establish exactly how much extra material we're going to need if we in fact have to go to 2 rooms.
I'm sorry, did you say 2 rooms or 2 locations?
2 locations.
2 sites.
2 sites.
That's, okay.
That's absolutely new. We have had
So-
2 rooms in the same.
Right, right. So
Yeah, I have a different opinion than Alan on this one. I think the high school gym and auditorium, in my mind,
Okay.
To separate the two is a problem.
I hate to have people go to 2 different
That is just asking for
But-
trouble.
locations.
That's
Because
asking for
he's,
trouble.
I
he
think, I
would,
think,
he would be
I think-
trying to fill up the memorial school first
Right.
and then,
but how do you communicate that to people?
Right. You're turning people away. and
Logistics nightmare.
yep.
Um,
And then
What
would be
about,
What's the
I
capacity?
understand he has a hesitation with
What's,
the gym in terms of its acoustics.
Yeah.
We did it that one time, it didn't seem that bad. We had a problem with the connection with the cafeteria, the auditorium at the time,
Right.
but I thought we did okay with the acoustics there.
because our electronic voting, how would we have 2 locations?
You
Could we do that with that?
would have 2 separate electronic voting. Each room would be handled and then the results would be.
So we have the capability to run 2 locations.
We will get that capability.
We have to get, okay, yeah.
We need to,
I think that just sounds unnecessarily complicated for a very important town meeting where we
Yeah.
really want everybody
And,
together.
and, I mean, his goal is to be able to seat 1,300 people.
and what's the capacity of Memorial School? That can't,
850.
I mean,
There's no place else
chances
to put
are
it.
it'll be okay
1,300
with
is the high
850.
school with the
The high
gym
school
plus
auditorium.
the auditorium?
I don't know what the high school gym is. The Memorial School gym, because it includes the
Yeah,
cafeteria,
it's everything in
is
one shot.
is
That's
bigger.
it. Once you get 850 in, you have no place else to stick it.
Yeah, unless they're in the,
That's the
atrium.
problem with Memorial. If you get
No
over
plan B.
850, what do you
Okay.
do?
And we don't know where the fire chief will be on that.
So, that's it. We can recommend a
That's
date
not,
now.
we don't need to make that decision
No,
tonight.
just be aware.
I don't understand the wisdom or the thought process there. I think they're just, what we did, I know it was failed somewhat when we did 2 years ago at the high school. We worked those kinks out now,
Yeah.
so we think.
We found a kink.
The other thing too is then we have to have 2 infrastructures set up.
If we have 2 rooms, we have to have 2 infrastructures,
But
basically.
they all check in
They can,
at the high school. They can
We
all
got 2
check in.
check-in places, you're right.
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
But if we were at 2 different locations, we have to set up 2 different
Yep.
infrastructures.
It's,
but that's something that
You can hash that out.
we have a couple of months
Right.
before we have to make.
No, summer's over on Friday. Sorry, but it is.
Anything else under goals that we need to?
Yeah, I didn't know if you wanted to go through them or,
I think they all are accurate. I would just suggest that some of these things are, goals are typically where you want to really focus your attention. I feel like the board committee training and outreach is something we've just kind of operationalized.
yeah, that is more just staff.
I think we can take that off
Take that
the
off. Yep.
list. The other ones I think we have along with.
So the other thing to think about is whether or not each of you want to sort of be a champion for one of these. That makes sense to you, or you do it collectively as a group. I think sometimes it's helpful to have a champion. So again, not something you need to decide on tonight, but something perhaps to think about and revisit.
Excuse me,
So sure.
I'm not really sure what's going on right now, but is
Neither
there
am I.
an open comment period during the meeting? That's why I've been waiting here for an opportunity to say something.
I'm sorry. Please go ahead.
No?
Yes.
Okay. I wanted to bring attention to something that's bothered me for some time, which derives from my role as the leader of the Mystery Book Club at the library for the last 20 years. We have a number of people that participate in that every month. And as you probably have heard in the library's PR, there's 4 different book clubs that meet there. There's a board of trustees that meets there. And at this last meeting of our Mystery Book Club, by the way, it meets at 10:30 in the morning, so you can imagine they're all like my age, seniors. So one of the individuals came out of the library, so we're there for the 1-hour meeting. They get there a little early and so forth, and they've got a $50 ticket on their windshield. And this issue comes up repeatedly on Church Street. It's next to the library. Those slots there are, I won't say they're library slots, but they're more or less library slots there, you know. And people come to the library, many of them come in, walk in, do their thing and walk out, but there's an awful lot of people that walk in and attend a program. And they're there for more than an hour. There needs to be a different mechanism than ticketing people, punishing them for going to the library. And, you know, this particular individual that was ticketed is 82 years old, you know, and it's more convenient to park there, so she does. But, you know, you say, well, why don't you go down the back there? And again, there's a lot of seniors involved in my particular group anyway. So, you know, I think there's 1 hour parking there. And I'm not suggesting that they make it 2 hour parking because, you know, I can see that throwing things off, but I don't know, there should be an answer. And one possible answer is to supply the librarian, the director, with authority to hand out placards or whatever to put in people's windshields while they're attending programs there. And so that they're not ticketed. It only happens, you know, during the summer months when we have the summer patrol that goes out and does these things. But it seems to come up every summer. Somebody gets nailed, and it just doesn't seem right. So I think in the past I've heard that the librarian has, not the current one, but previously has reached out to try and do something, and just nothing gets anywhere. I'm not really sure why. So I'm coming to the horses.
Whichever part of horse.
Whatever it's called. All right, so
Thank you.
do something about this, please. And
I think it's valid.
talk to Cynthia or make it some kind of a solution.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, the initial comment section got kind of lost in the crowd at the beginning.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for waiting.
Yep.
So, I think we are thinking about which of us will adopt which goal. I'm not prepared to.
No, I think that's something to think about.
Okay.
We can revisit.
So, the budget process.
So, again, we talked a little bit about this at the workshop. Just desire perhaps to focus more of our time and energy on some of the, what I would call the bigger picture issues and the long range forecasting. I think we have some real challenges ahead in terms of pacing ourselves on capital projects in particular. And perhaps spending less time through a more streamlined process for all the line items, all the line item accounts that get reviewed and ultimately approved. So I was interested in your thoughts on that, and what ideas you might have. And again, I think it would be worthwhile to have a discussion with the Finance Committee before the fall season gets underway.
Could we schedule a joint meeting with them in early September?
Certainly can, yes.
Yeah, I think a joint meeting would be helpful. I think though some of this stuff we probably want to discuss in the summer. I don't think it can wait. Especially if they start the capital process in September, right? And your team is, when does your team start working the budgets?
Yeah, it is in September, and then they'll have capital ready by the end of October, so.
Yeah, I'm just thinking if we wanna, have a discussion and make some changes, or enhancements, I should say, it makes sense to have that discussion before your team starts working. So it just feels like August might be
Yeah,
better.
although the early discussion is capital.
So this past year, we took up capital in
I think there's
November.
probably less of a problem with capital than it is with
Well,
a lot
I
of the
think-
other stuff that has
I think the-
hundreds and hundreds of lines.
Well, that's true. I just think that the big rocks, as Greg and I keep referring to this, it's more than just capital. And does it make sense to have some discussion about how we tackle all of the big rocks, not just the capital? That's kind
I'm
of,
not suggesting that we don't talk before we have a joint meeting with this.
Oh,
In fact,
okay,
I
sorry.
would very much like to have us have a unified position on
Got it,
where we
got it.
want to go.
Understand.
And then talk to the finance committee, rather
Understand.
than having it be, yeah, so, sorry, I didn't mean to wipe out. Because I was pretty much wiped out, but
We wanna drive the bus.
we should, right? And I agree with that 100%, yeah.
So, where do we want the bus to go?
Well, that's another story.
And how big is the bus? How fancy is the bus? And lots of other stuff, yeah. And I think maybe we could think about, we could talk about what we feel we need as a board. What information do we need to start that conversation, even amongst ourselves? We may want to revisit the facilities, master plan. We may want some other, what's the list of the other big rocks, right? We have the facilities master plan we can pull out, but what's not included in that that's very expensive that we might want to introduce into those conversations?
Does the word Essex bring anything?
Yeah,
I'm just, didn't want to go down a rat hole like I did with the pickleball, so.
I should say.
But I think we need that really holistic view, hear all the big stuff, and then figure out how we want to.
Yes, I can prepare a summary of that.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. That would be wonderful.
So, yeah, maybe that's a place to start. So do you want to have that discussion as part of your next meeting? You want to do a workshop setting?
We seem to be able to get a certain amount of work done in a meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fine. Maybe we can try that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Try it a couple, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I will be remote for all of the meetings in August, but I would be.
Your Starlink would be running.
Starlink.
Yeah.
Question for you, Greg, on this list, one of the things we talked about at the retreat was an independent review of our internal operations. And I wasn't sure if you were including that in the TA recruitment or the budget and finance section.
Had that, so that operational audits in the budget and finance.
Budget and, got it, okay, okay.
I know we've discussed that, and there are advantages to doing it with Greg.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's where we landed,
Okay.
and so therefore, I feel a sense of urgency to get moving on that.
I would agree.
So, is there
For a
anything,
number of reasons.
Yeah.
We need it before the budget season really gets
that's true,
too
yes.
far away.
So do you need anything from us in order to get moving on that?
No.
Okay.
Just identify a couple of 3 folks who might be able to do that for us.
Mhm.
And, I'll get some proposals to get under your noses as well.
Sounds great, thank you.
Okay.
How do you propose to keep people from getting fascinated by the little bright stones?
So,
I'm
One of
sorry, I didn't
The
hear.
little bright,
The little bright
shiny stones.
so one of the things that Greg mentioned in his note is a common technique, which is you have the liaisons go over the nitty-gritty detail, not the full committee.
Okay.
And so usually you start from the top down, there are like financial boundaries, right? Okay, here's what you spent last year. Either you're projecting a flat budget or a small increased budget. You work within those, you have the liaison work with the department head within that set of boundaries. And as long as they stay within those boundaries, discussion over.
Okay.
Okay? And that keeps everybody out of the weeds. Now, if somebody wants to spend more than the boundaries, then you have a discussion with the broader committee. That was kind of my, was that?
Wanted to articulate that while we were here. Is there anything else that we need to deal with today on the budget?
I think that's fine. Let me get some more background information. We'll have that. I'll tee it up for the next meeting.
Great. Okay. Liaison updates. Kathy?
So Bike and Ted and Downtown Improvement are working together. Downtown Improvement presented their 2.0 plan to the Bike and Ped Committee last week, and they were discussing how the two groups could work together to present us with, joint recommendations on areas where they overlap instead of coming to us separately. And so I've encouraged them to focus on their inputs to the culvert project, because we know that's gonna happen next year. It's part of downtown. Pedestrian access is a big topic, so they're gonna work together with Chuck to come up with a set of recommendations, so we don't have to deal with people individually. And I also went on a very nice longevity bench walk with the Bike and Ped team hosted that on Saturday. We did one of the routes that was in the little handout that Lisa Bonneville, wonderful 2 hours, it was a great time. They did a nice job with that, so. Then if they host another one, I encourage everybody to join.
Walking?
Yeah. I put in 19,000 steps that day because then we continued on to Manchester and Gloucester, so my feet were not happy.
Guess you don't want to be liaison for that committee.
Jeff?
I don't really have anything at the moment, so.
No, I haven't, honestly, I haven't spoken to Cheryl, but, we have that ongoing saga.
Yeah.
And,
That which will not be named.
Yeah, and that action should
So
be
you
on
have-
Brian's name, not mine.
I think that,
So there is a date for the barriers, I think July 10th is the,
Dates, but,
Next
the
week.
email you sent was the 8th.
okay.
Next week.
Regardless, it's next week sometime. And
This
then,
is-
and they tried to get the testing set up now, so we can, we need the testing pre-installation.
we should be prepared that it's not gonna be enough.
Well,
Yeah.
we know this.
But we
We
can't.
have to, no, we're gonna do it.
Yeah.
Well, as long as they meet the metrics, then we pay them, and if they don't meet the metrics, we don't pay them.
What's,
That's all we're evaluating, and then we're done with the conversation.
how long is that installation? Is this like 1 day or is this a week?
Oh, no, it's gonna be a couple of days tops, I would think.
As I said, probably a couple, 3 days.
Oh, okay.
I guess.
All right, all right.
Who is responsible for getting the pre-installation testing done? Is it the company or is it Cheryl?
So Cheryl's working with the company and working with another company.
Okay,
So it's
okay. So there's a third party which
Yes.
does the actual testing.
Yes.
And they are working with the installers, and the company that's providing the, and,
right.
okay.
Now, a sore subject as long as we're on pickleball. I would like to consider removing a source of contention, which is parking on the street, okay?
On
Okay, I think that.
On where?
On Forest.
On Forest.
Forest,
Yeah.
sorry.
I think that, at this point, once those barriers go up, I don't think that. We've got a residence, staircase should be able to park on a residence house, on residence street. If not, we're gonna have this constant, battle as to why you're parking on my street, playing pickleball. And I'd just like to remove
I don't think
that.
there's anything in our parking regulations that says what you're parking for.
Exactly, but we've accommodated the residents, but I think that accommodation should be over at this point.
I'm sorry, I'm not clear on what we're saying. Are we,
There are a couple of residents who object very strongly to having people park in front of their houses.
right, understand that.
Um,
I'm not sure
to
what
play
the
pickleball.
suggestion is.
If they are residents and it's a resident-only street, then they should be able to park there.
Right.
Even if they're playing
The purpose,
pickleball.
right.
Right.
I guess what I'm asking is there a resident-only sign on that street right now? Is that resident-only parking?
Yes.
Okay, that makes.
Right, and there's been, and we've accommodated them for 2 years now, right, about 2 years, as far as those cones, those traffic cones. I'd like those removed and just,
Right. Chief and I talked about that the other day, so,
Okay.
yes. That would go away.
But it would be restricted to residents.
Correct. Yes, absolutely.
But nobody can block somebody else's.
Correct. Correct.
Sounds like.
Yeah, and, we've gotten some complaints about playing, after hours, pre or posted hours. And people need to call the police if they see somebody.
God bless you, if you wanna climb the fence, a locked fence, that's. Everyone else would
Do
do.
the police have a camera? And a.
They do, it's not,
Not very good.
they're not sitting there watching it.
Right.
So when there's someone at the desk, yes, but if someone's not at the desk, it's not being watched.
And the camera is motion sensitive, I think. isn't it?
Correct.
Okay. And the problem is that it's not big enough to pick up all 6 courts. So somebody, I don't think
I think they were
everybody
trying to-
knows
with the bigger
what the
fence,
angle of the story is with a camera, but if you're in another corner.
Well, an unmonitored safety camera is worth very little. Maybe just a motion detector that sends a.
Sends off an alarm.
Sends out an alarm. I don't know. I'm unhappy that the relationship between the police and those residents is as bad as it is. I understand that the residents are difficult, but the police should be able to deal with difficult people.
Yeah, I mean, that's another discussion, but yes. There's certainly 2 sides to that story.
I'm sure there are, but.
Well, I think residents need to respect the police. I mean, there needs to be a mutual respect there, So, I don't know, we know the whole story.
I don't think we'll ever know the whole truth.
Right. I mean, so who knows
Back to
how,
high school.
who knows how it really goes down. But
Yeah, it goes back to high school.
Okay,
Yeah, just one thing on the seniors. Greg and I met with the Friends of the Council on Aging last, I don't know, Tuesday or Wednesday or something like that, to discuss fundraising for the senior center and to kind of get a plan for how that's going to evolve. I think Greg's looking for a number of fundraisers over the next couple of weeks, or having somebody do that. At the same time, Sue Croft is going to be looking for grants associated with senior center. There is money out there at the state level or what, federal level or something, and kind of get the ball rolling and all of that. The expectation is that we can get some sort of a money-raising thing, effort going by early fall or so. So we'll see. We don't know if there are a lot of people that have experience in fundraising, especially with senior initiatives or not, but I guess we're gonna find out.
How are we doing on getting the deal with the Masons closed?
We actually had a meeting with them today. So we have our town attorney working up with PNS as well as the condo docs. So we're hoping to have a draft to the Masons by the middle of July. And with the aim of finalizing it by the 1st of August.
Is there any chance that we could have a draft available for us
Yeah, most certainly.
at our next meeting?
I'll try.
Okay.
Yeah.
If not, then the first meeting.
Yeah, let me see if I can get, it's a good deadline for, gives me a little clout to beat up the lawyer a little bit. My board wants it, so please give it to me.
If we need to.
Yeah.
Ann has a gavel, it's in here.
Yeah.
I thought I was gonna.
Oh,
need
no,
it,
there
but-
it is.
But yes.
Yeah, because once that's done, I think we can start having some activity there, or I hope.
Once we have a sign, PNS.
Once we have a signed
that's a
PNS,
trigger
yeah.
for a few things.
Then it would be nice to be able to start.
Right. From the Masons' perspective, they will wait to sign the PNS until after we have a green light from the ZBA to do the expansion.
Yes, okay.
So,
So it's not instant, but.
right. So my hope would be to have that all signed, sealed, and delivered by end of September.
Great. Great.
So that's what we're shooting for.
Okay, the MBTA, zoning continues, primarily working on outreach right now, but also simultaneously looking at worst-case scenarios if the state comes back and says, no, you can't do. And I think there are 2 areas where we're at risk. One is the state may decide that Newport Park, because it's currently deed restricted to seniors, can't be included. And that would require changing the geography somewhat.
That's a pretty critical piece.
It's possible, I think Mark is working on it, but I think it's possible to extend out Pine Street, being really careful about not avoiding large lots. But it may not happen. It's a slightly unusual situation. I think our consultant may not have had to deal with exactly the situation of trying to rezone something that's part of the State Housing Authority. But I hope that by the middle of the summer, we have something that if the word comes back from the state, probably now at the end of September, we can move. The other thing that I'm slightly worried about is that we put a lot of weight on the site review plan. And typically site reviews can't fail. And the problem is that we have some regulations that ordinarily require a special permit for building in the watershed to the well, for example. And there's one other section that's of question. And what the proposed bylaw says is that to pass the site review, you have to pass the same requirements as the special permit, but it doesn't have a special permit. So I don't know how we're going to deal with that, if that comes out as a problem. But Mark and the other people, we are trying, for the last several meetings, the MBTA zoning has met jointly with the planning board, and that's awkward to do if you're trying to get actual work done. If you're trying to integrate it's great. But if what you're trying to do is resolve a problem, so the MBTA zoning will, I believe, be meeting independently on July 19th to talk about dealing with contingencies that might come out of the statement. And lots of plans. And thank you for thinking of the community center.
Yeah, we'll come to that one.
That would be, the more people, I think that the more people see the districts and get used to the idea of where they are, the fact that most of it is 2.5 stories, most of it is restricted in the number of the units that you can put on a lot, rather than the number of units that just by acreage.
I think once it's understood, it makes sense. And obviously, that sounds foolish, but.
No, it doesn't. Some things I understand don't make any sense at all.
But I think that the sky is falling mentality, okay?
Yeah.
We have to cut through that.
Yeah.
And demonstrate that. I think after what I sat with this, was it last month or whatever it was, it's obvious to me that the task force did everything they could do to comply without giving away anything at all. And I think they did an admirable job doing it. Now, whether the state acknowledges that or not, but then we have to get through, gotta get that to the voter, that information packaged in such a way as that, oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, I think that's the whole job right there.
Right. I mean, right now, maybe the hard work is behind you now. Now the real hard work is trying to simplify it. And so, as I've always said, I'm the lowest common denominator. And oddly, I understand it. So we should be able to fly right through this thing.
So that's what's going on. The school appears to have disappeared. They will show up again in September, right? I will, before I disappear, I will get in and talk to, in fact, before our next meeting, I'll talk to Pam and see what she's thinking about next year's budget. That continues to be an issue.
Mhm.
Okay. We're done with the liaison updates. I have a comment on the minutes in the consent agenda. Find it. Nice. On page 2 in the wayfinding signage, we voted to put up 6 signs to be funded in this fiscal year. I hear from Maureen Dolan that she went to Chuck about putting up signs and he said he didn't have any money and the fiscal year is over.
I'm working on it.
Thank you.
Spent a lot of money on those green signs that say electronic monitoring.
Do you think there are enough of those?
Pardon?
Do you think there are enough of those?
You know, see green, talk about a little overage, I know, we have to do it, obviously, but there's a lot of those signs.
I saw one, is there the whole row?
Oh, it's right all the way down Beach Street. I think every 2 spots.
No, really.
I think it's important to get the new signage up and get feedback on it. So I would appreciate you. So it wasn't a comment on the minutes per se, it was when we vote on something, I like to see it happen.
Yes.
So other than that, are there any, can we approve the consent agenda?
I move that the select board approve the consent agenda items listed.
Second.
Yes.
No, I'm just saying.
Yes.
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Good stuff. And make sure you're not stepping out of time.
Keep me on my toes.
Town administrators report.
Yeah, pretty self-explanatory, tree hearing follow-ups. You were able to get those 3 that you approved to be taken down. We did do trimming on one of the big trees at 49, and worked with the cable company on the other one, Comcast. Get that other one down. Ocean Street grant was on the action follow-up. So the grant is due later this month. We'll get you the proposed scope once we have it finalized. It'll focus on an array of options in a public engagement process that will include trying to get some of the regulators in here to talk to us about what sort of permitting hurdles and options we will face. So when we have that submittal ready to go, we'll post it and you can have copies as well. We do have a number of letters of support that residents of Ocean Street have written, which is very helpful as part of the grant submittal today. So that's coming along well. And obviously, July 4th is almost here.
Summer's
The
over.
parent cake breakfast went off well on Saturday. Good crowds and
Well, only one kid got stuck in a tree that I know of.
I don't think we lost anyone overboard on the shuttle. A lot of people were using the shuttle, which is a good thing.
I think this is the shuttle is a great idea. I think
Yeah.
there's a handful, not a handful, but I think there's a large group of citizens that don't get on the water except for that.
Yeah, no, it's a nice addition. It does relieve some parking for sure. And obviously we have the concert coming up and then fireworks on Wednesday night and then the parade obviously on Thursday. So looks like the weather's going to cooperate. I hope I didn't just jinx it. So that'll be great. I think Manchester does a great job on 4th of July. It's a nice set of celebrations.
The point of the parade, what time should we meet at the, Monday, what was it, like 9:30?
I think, yeah, 9:30, at the corner of Vine.
Vine and Lincoln,
Yep.
which is where things start.
Because it's 2 hours of good serious drinking before.
Speak for yourself.
I think John is writing hard on that. And it's-
Yeah, I think so. My son will show up with the card, I think, at the appropriate time. And I've got 20 pounds of candy here, courtesy of Kathy. We have 1,000 flags. We've got a
Divided
bubble
into 4
machine.
groups.
These are, in fact, 4 packages here, so this is pre-packaged. Yeah.
And you will monitor that we don't open extra packages before we get to
I can't be responsible for my granddaughter's behavior.
your granddaughter.
So you're the parade czar is what it amounts to.
Yeah.
Has Cheryl or Hope chosen a community hero? Oh, is
Yeah.
that-
Very nice.
That makes perfect sense.
Yep. So is she like at the head of the parade or?
Yes.
She'll ride in the ladder truck.
Oh, okay.
I think the old cars have to go first.
Yeah, the antique cars go first.
She'll be riding one of those bikes.
Yeah.
The big wheel.
Yeah,
one of those.
big wheel bike.
Once you're up there, it's great. I guess, I don't know.
I'm good.
I'm looking for a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all very much.
Good.